Tem que sim. Ima tem que sim.
I will use the opportunity of being one of the founder of the school. Welcome all of you, as saying, before we start officially our session, and I'm also really glad to see many of my friends from AGBU and other guests here, and I'm very glad that you all came and saw by your eyes what we did during this last 80 years building a school. But I think it will be right for all of us to be welcomed by the person who is really head of the school and person who is now hosting all of you, not me, because he's the headmaster of the school. I'm very glad that John Padderfoot, he's our headmaster. He came and living in Armenia now already more than 1 year, and it's a big privilege for us having this type of the senior, high-quality professional building the school in Armenia. John, thank you. And
well, Ruben, thank you very much for that welcome, and Barev Zez Bari Galusht. I would like to say how pleased we are that the AGBU selected us as one of the venues of the 3 that you've been at this week for your annual conference and a particularly warm welcome to you, therefore, on this, the first occasion on which the school has been complete and ready and able to host such a distinguished gathering. A little piece of history. Ruben said that the planning and development of the school has taken something like 8 years. We finally opened our doors to students last August, and we now have 96 students from 48 different countries of the world, as far apart as Argentina and Malaysia. Shortly, we will admit our second year of students, and next year we expect to have not 96 but about 200 students here, and they will be, all being well, from 64 countries of the world. And so we represent a genuinely international school here in Armenia for what I think it's fair to call the first time. I think one of the things that is worth saying is that this presence of so many foreign students in Armenia has many benefits. And one of those that we are already seeing is that we have made it a central part of our education to ensure that all the projects that we enter into in the local community are done jointly, which means that we are always in partnership with local people and local young people, especially in designing what our projects will achieve and in asking the local community what they would like to achieve that we can help them to achieve. There is no question of us arriving like something from outer space and telling local people what's good for them. That is absolutely not our policy or our intention. We want to be a part of Dilijan, we want to be a part of Armenia, and we want to be a part of both, which means that whatever is good for Armenia and Dilijan is also good for us and for our students. And an immediate and very obvious benefit of that has been that local students have had exposure to people from 48, well actually if you eliminated Armenia itself, 47 different countries. And therefore our students don't just bring their languages and their flags, they also bring their cultures, they bring their experience of different societies, and they bring their experience of different forms of government and all sorts of differences that enrich the local community every time they interact. It's been an enormous privilege to work here for the year and a bit that I have been here. I look forward to next year with great enthusiasm, and I hope very much that we will all see the AGBU again on another occasion with more students and more to talk about. But thank you very much for coming, and as I say, welcome.
Thank you. We need to make small improvisation, but I will suggest to start the panel despite our moderator is not arrived yet. And I want to invite my other panelist member and before we'll be starting our discussion, I want to please come and I want to welcome all of you. Just moderator will come and will introduce. But before, I want to say thank you for coming, and we'd like to have an interesting discussion. But if I may use the opportunity also doing some small introductory movie for discussion we'll have, which is not about Armenia. And it's a movie I saw 2 weeks ago, and I thought it's very relevant what we are discussing today. And I want to show you about a movie which was made in India when we celebrate 60th anniversary of independence. And it's one of the most very famous actor who made this 2 minutes short speech, which I want to we'll now watch it. Okay, Lena, can you put in this India?
There are two Indias in this country. One India is training at the leash, eager to spring forth and live up to all the adjectives that the world has been recently showering upon us. The other India is the leash. One India says, give me a chance and I'll prove myself. The other India says, prove yourself first and maybe then you'll have a chance. One India lives in the optimism of our hearts. The other India lurks in the skepticism of our minds. One India wants. The other India hopes. One India leads. The other India follows. These conversions are on the rise. With each passing day, more and more people from the other India are coming over to this side. And quietly, while the world is not looking, a pulsating, dynamic new India is emerging. An India whose faith in success is far greater than its fear of failure. An India that no longer boycotts foreign-made goods, but buys out the companies that make them instead. History, they say, is a bad motorist. It rarely ever signals its intentions when it's taking a turn. This is that rarely ever moment. History is turning a page. For over half a century, our nation has sprung, stumbled, run, fallen, rolled over, got up and dusted herself, and cantered, sometimes lurched on. But now, in our 60th year as free nation, the ride has brought us to the edge of time's great precipice. And one India, a tiny little voice in the back of the head, is looking down at the bottom of the ravine and hesitating. The other India is looking up at the sky and saying, it's time to fly.
Բարև ձեզ տիկնակեր պարոնակ, ես ամենաուշացած մարդն եմ, որը պետք է առաջին այստեղ ելներ, իմ անունը Արտակ Ալեքսանյանն է, ուղղակի ժանրի բոլոր կանոններով մեքենայի անիվը ծակվեց, հետո ուշացանք, շնորհակալ եմ, որ բոլորդ ստեղ եք, մենք սկսում ենք հայկական բարեգործական ընդհանուր միության երրորդյա քննարկումների վերջի օրը, համառոտ մի քանի խոսք, թե ինչի համար ենք հավաքվել եւ ինչպես է գնալու։ Ինչպես գիտեք, հայ բարեգործական ընդհանուր միությունը, որ ստեղծվել է 1905 թվականին, այս տարի նշում է իր հիմնադրման 109-րդ տարեդարձը, ապրիլի 15-ին կդառնա 109 տարեկան, եւ երկրորդ դարաշրջան թևակողելով հայկական բարեգործական ընդհանուր միությունը փորձում է հասկանալ, թե որոնք են հայության խնդիրները, ինքը լինելով հայկական, համահայկական կառույց, փորձում է առաջ բերել եւ այս քննարկումների շրջանակում հասկանալ, թե ինչի մասին ենք խոսելու։ Եվ այդ առիթով կազմակերպել էր քննարկում, առաջի օրը մենք քննարկում էինք մարդկային կապիտալը։ Որոնք են հայության մարդկային կապիտալ, ինչպես այն կարելի է կապիտալիզացնել, որոնք են խնդիրները, որոնք հնարավոր են դա մոնետարիզացնել եւ տնտեսական օգուտներ քաղել։ Երկրորդ օրը մենք խոսում էինք այն մասին, թե որոնք են Հայաստան պետության առաջ կանգնած մարտահրավերները, ինչպիսի պետություն ենք մենք ցանկանում ունենալ, ինչպիսի խնդիրներ կան մեր առաջ եւ երբ հնարավոր են դրանք լուծել, ինչպիսի բարեփոխումների կարիք ունենք եւ բայց ամենակարևորը ինչպես պետք է այդ բարեփոխումները իրականացնենք եւ գլխավորապես ինչպես այդ բարեփոխումների արդյունքները զգանք ավելի շուտ։ Եվ արդեն երրորդ օրը մենք խոսելու ենք հայության միջազգային դիրքերի ամրապնդման մասին կամ improving Armenians international standing։ Նրանք ովքեր որ հայեր են դժվար են հասկանում, կա զուգահեռ թարգմանություն, նրանք ովքեր որ անգլերեն են դժվար հասկանում, կան հենց թարգմանություն։ Եվ այսօր շնորհակալ եմ պարոն Վարդանյանին իմ բացակայությունը լրացնելու համար, եկեք
Good improvisation is always one of the best part of the entrepreneurship.
Okay, thank you. Եվ եկեք ներկայացնեմ այսօրվա մեր փյուրերին։ Արվի վիզետ ընկերության հիմնադրամի նախագահ Ռուբեն Վարդանյան, GK ընկերության գործադիր տնօրեն Վազգեն Քալաջյան, Արաս ընկերության տնօրեն Վիկտորիա Ասլանյան եւ Homeland Development Initiative Foundation-ի հիմնադիր Timothy Strait։ Եվ սկսելով այսօրվա քննարկումը, ես հիշեցնեմ, որ մեր այս քննարկումը ինտերակտիվ է, այն իմաստով, որ ձեր հարցերը կարող եք ուղղել Twitter-ի միջոցով, ուղղակի Twitter-ում գրեք #AGBUtalks, անմիջապես կհայտնվի էկրաններին, դրանք նաև ինտերակտիվ են, հենց հիմա արդեն դուք տեսնում եք, եւ այդ հարցերը կուղղենք նաև մեր մասնակիցներին։ Ես այստեղ նկատում եմ, որ այստեղ են նաև մեր պանելիստներ, այսինքն մարդիկ, որոնք նախորդ խոսել էին նախորդ համագումարներին, ես հիշեցնեմ, որ քննարկումը տևելու է 2.5 ժամ, որից հետո արդեն, այսպես ասած, եզրափակիչ խոսքով հանդես կգա Հայ բարեգործական ընդհանրության նախագահ Պերս Սեթրակյանը, որը նույնպես այստեղ է։ Եվ այսպես աշխատում ենք 1:30-ից մինչև ժամը 4-ը, այնուհետև արդեն պարոն Սեթրակյանը, այսպես ասած, կամփոփի բոլոր այն մտքերը, որոնք որ մասնակցել է, լսել է, տեսել է այս օրերին։ Եվ հիմա արդեն սկսենք հանդիպումը եւ բոլորին նույն հարցը տանք, առաջի հարցը թերևս հետեւյալն է, պարոն Վարդյան, սկսենք ձեզանից, արդյոք հնարավոր է խոսել հայերի հավաքական միջազգային վարկի մասին, որպես հավաքականություն, թե դրանք տարբեր են ինչպես Սփյուռքի համար, նաեւ Հայաստանի դեպքում մասնավորապես։
Շնորհակալություն, ես անգլերեն խոսեմ, այն ավելի հեշտ կլինի անգլերեն հենց հարցին պատասխանել, չնայած Հայաստանում ենք գտնվում եւ ճիշտ կներ հայերեն խոսենք։ I think it's a unique advantage which we are recognizing and sometimes complaining, but not, I think, understanding how really it's how big difference between Armenian nations and other nations exist. I've been traveling around the world many years, and I'm working with many nationalities, and I think one of the things that always surprised me, and I'm by quarter Georgian, but just seeing the people, other nationalities, always surprised why is Armenian diaspora so active in Armenian world, and how you feel its connections, despite many of Armenians being never born here, and it's not their motherland, it's not like diaspora. And I think one of the points which is always surprised my foreign colleagues with entitlement, which is not can be defined by just any material point. So for me, it's our biggest advantage what we have is the two part of the world, Armenian world. The question how well we're using it, the question how well we connected is, how well we trying to organize the communication and understanding is a big point of our discussion, and I think part we will discuss today. And I think the AGBU doing a great job trying to have these connections of the Armenians living in different parts of the world and speaking not in Armenian but speaking many other languages, and sometimes don't speak Armenian. And I think one of our points is how to best use it, how to best organize this will be more efficient from both sides, because I believe it can be only one way. It will be needs to work with this. Both sides will benefit from this. And I'm sure it's no difference, and it's despite we are having different background, we have a different culture, traditions, by the way, because we're coming from Western Armenia, Eastern Armenia. We have a lot of difference because we grew up in Argentina or in Russia. It's a big gap between understanding each other.
Yes, the problem is everyone, each of us has a stereotype about other nations. But can we build an international standing about us? Is that mission is possible?
But we have a stereotype, at the same time we're all Armenians. That's why I say we have a unique situation, being from Argentina or from Russia, but we are Armenian. So why being Armenian is becoming by a unique definition, which differentiates us compared with being just Russian or being just Argentinian. So I say yes, we can be. I'm always joking with the Armenians being first before the Facebook started. We already knew how to build a social network, despite of the knowing technology. And I think it's one of the. It is true. Look the history of Armenia, and I think I'm sure it's taking too much time, but we've been located geographically between the different civilizations, Roman Empire and Parthians, Byzantium and Persians. And it's always been Armenians being one of the unique nations who've been communicator between the different civilizations. And living in Singapore or Myanmar and going Hong Kong and coming back. And again, don't forget, millions of people been born and died without going in the biggest city, which was 100 kilometers from the Bay Village. We've been traveling around the world already hundreds of years, and we've been getting used to this. This is why, for us, it's a part of the uniqueness of the community energy. We know how to communicate with different civilizations. This is why we are different, and this is definitely we need to recognize and be analyzed better.
All right, thank you very much. As, many of you know that our Armenian government has signed a deal with Vazgen Dilijan's company to do a research and accomplish and to do research about Armenian branding. So, as far as I know, the results are in. And so, what you can say about what should be branded as an Armenia now?
First, I'd like to thank the AGBU for this great event, Vazgen Yakubian for the invitation, and for Dilijan School for hosting. This is an amazing place, and I think this is a beginning indication of what Armenia's brand can be. If we continue building this way, this is a great start right here in terms of, let's say, if Armenia is knowledge destination. Right now we have this world-class institution, Dilijan School. We have AUA, world-class institution. We have ARP School, that's a world-class school. And the new program that their Mesrop is leading with the baccalaureate program, Armenian. And we have Luis, and we have so many other amazing programs that are going on in Armenia just in the education sector. So if we took Armenia as a knowledge destination, already we have so many great stories to talk about. But in terms of the Armenia brand, it's really a long conversation, so I don't know how much time I will have to present what we've done so far. It's important, especially for this group, to understand clearly what was done, to understand clearly how we need to position Armenia against or in comparison with all the other countries around the world that are also fighting or wanting to attract the same investors, the same tourist dollars, the same students. So that's a little bit of longer conversation. I might have to use some slides with your permission. But in terms of Armenia's brand, we have tremendous amount of positive stories. Besides Ruben, we have Vika here as an example of what Armenia has achieved in the last 5 years in wine sector alone. Already, we have 4 or 5 amazing wines, including her wines. I'm sure all of you know her company. Make sure you visit her vineyard. So right here to my left and my right, we have the future of Armenia brand.
What about your research?
What about the research?
You have results. I mean, we've been talking about a year ago, and you said that you have outlined what you're going to say.
Yeah.
So,
well, the research is really interesting. We conducted research in 35 countries plus Armenia. And in the audience, in the research pool, we have the Armenian population, including Armenia and the diaspora. And the diaspora, we spoke to the Armenians from all over the world, including the biggest diaspora, Russia, France, United States, Canada, South America, Iran, Middle East, all over the world. And then on the other side, we have our potential customers or our potential audience vis-a-vis tourism and investments. Those are the 2 key sectors that the government of Armenia, this project is led by the president, wants to focus right now on tourism and investments. Of course, with tourism also comes students that we want to attract to come here and study. So in terms of that, the 2 pools of audience that we have, the Armenian world, and then in the Armenian world we have all the diaspora, and then within diaspora we have the old diaspora, genocide diaspora, new diaspora, Soviet diaspora, and so on and so forth. And then in terms of the tourism pool, we have luxury tourists, and we have tourists who are interested in ethnic, cultural, or nature tourism, agro-tourism. And in terms of investors, we talk to all sorts of investors, funds, institutional funds, businesses, entrepreneurs, and so on. So of course, the results that we received, to me as an Armenian, is somewhat disappointing, but it's positive because the biggest pool in our research is people who didn't have any information about Armenia. To me, that's positive. Of course, for Armenia, it's not positive. To me, it's positive because I can now tell those people the right story that we want to tell them. Because they haven't been programmed with the negative stories that some of the diaspora repeats. Like, you hear, whenever I hear that term, as yergiri yergirchi, I cringe, like my body cringes. But we will change the stories. Thank you. We will change the stories. We will create the right stories for each one of these audiences. We need to have specific stories, specific way of speaking to each one of these groups. Because, frankly, if you notice, nobody gives a damn. Nobody gives a damn. Look, for 100 years, you've been trying to convince Turkey and the United States to accept the Armenian genocide, and how far has that gotten you? So no one cares. So you have to speak to people in terms of what they are interested in. So this is how we have to approach people, and this is how we have to approach the business community, and this is how we have to approach the diaspora and the tourist community.
Thank you. Victoria, talking about Armenia's international standing business-wise, you've done a tremendous job of presenting new market for wine industry and having got a lot of prizes of that. So what do you think Armenia's international standing business-wise? For example, when we say that I like French wines, I don't specifically mean a brand. I mean the industry of French. So could it be like an industry that can associate it with the Armenians?
Absolutely, and actually this is where I would like to use a few slides, if I may. Our potential in the winemaking sector cannot be overestimated. We have such history and such potential, and only 30% of our arable land is cultivated. So that in itself shows huge promise. In the past few years, we've already been exporting internationally to several countries, our company among them, but we're not the only ones. Armas, Karas, Banardi, Zara Wines, Trinity, Tairiri, there are so many that we're already producing quality products. And I think it's the responsibility of every Armenian to first and foremost promote all of this production and quality and progress that's happening in our nation today. And there's so much positive things that we can talk about that it is indeed a shame that we talk about the negative, because as important as it is to be critical of ourselves as well as the systems that we entrust with various aspects of the quality of our lives, we shouldn't do so in a manner that impedes progress. Sometimes too much dialogue impedes progress. So bringing it back to the wine sector, sorry, I'm having a little bit difficult. Okay, so we have this biblical legend, which is priceless, of course. Noah resting his ark on Mount Ararat journeyed down to the valleys of Mount Ararat, and upon recognizing the magnanimous terroir, they planted the first vines, the first vineyards. Speaking of our terroir, it's ideal for the growing of quality grapes for high-end wine production. Because of certain political policies, Armenia is now known for brandy and not for wine, but we can change that, and already you can see, and I'll go through other slides where it shows that wine culture locally is growing as well as exports. So we should speak about our terroir, we should tell them our history, and as well as the biblical legend, but also archaeological facts. We have the world's oldest winery. This is carbon dated, 6,100-year-old winery. It was discovered in the Vaiotso region in 2009. It's a cultural gem, and it's a shame that very few people know about it. It should indeed be a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We have remnants of grape seeds that were found that prove that we are indeed the motherland of the vine. Inscriptions that show what kind of a rich wine trade we had. And it's not coincidental that the image of the grape is such a fixture in Armenian architecture and cross stones. And also we have Greek historians who speak about, again, our wine trade. So this is a quote by, is it on the screen? Okay. Renee Pagnan. She's the director of the world's oldest winemaking university in France, who we're collaborating with now to better educate Armenian students. And Armenia is the cradle of winemaking, and it should restore the traditions, re-establish its image, and take its rightful place on the global viticultural map. With such history, coupled with current quality production, Armenia can do in 20 years what France did in 800. And indeed, that's the case. But each Armenian should support this renaissance of Armenian wine, and we should do it proudly, because the wines are really good.
How?
Talk about it. Educate, promote, purchase Armenian products. This doesn't relate only to wine. Buy Armenian wine. There's in various price segments. I mean, you know, you cringe when people say, I cringe when I hear people say, if I'm going to spend that much, I'll buy a French or Italian wine of lesser quality imported from Europe. Why? Buy Armenian, it's good. I mean, our winemakers are Italian if it helps.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. By the way, it was with 2 screens, video and PowerPoint. So
yeah, the video is actually about Armas, and it chronicles our journey from 2007. We have a 180-hectare estate, which was transformed from completely rock-strewn, no electricity, no irrigation whatsoever. And today we have a world-class winery. We produce brandy as well. And we're exporting to several countries, available for online sales throughout Europe. And most importantly, we have provided anywhere during the season between 30 to 200 jobs, and we have a wonderful team of young graduates from local universities trained from people from outside. So when that opportunity exists, people take it. I don't think human capital we were speaking about, investing in our youth. We just need mentorship, guidance, and opportunity. I'm among them. I actually did with AUA a top class, and Al Yesayan was one of the speakers from Icon Apps. And he said, I guarantee if you ask any Armenian, I'm sorry, I'm going on at length. I guarantee, but if you ask any Armenian, a successful Armenian, when they got their opportunity or big break, they will point to another Armenian, be it a relative, an associate, or whatnot. We should really utilize that network.
Okay, thank you very much. And let's hear the most unbiased guy here in the room, Timothy Strait. You've been here for a long time, so you can talk. Yes, your impression and your assessment on the Armenia's international standing and Armenia's qualities that you are.
I am a boy from Ohio in the United States. I am not Armenian. I was sent here to represent Norway and Finland about 15 years ago. That's the rough story. And in the meantime, because I see so much potential that we've been talking about across the panel here, and sitting with my diplomatic mission and lots of extra time and a product development background, I decided to set out and go to the villages of Armenia and unleash some of the potential of the women of this country. So I created something called the Homeland Development Initiative Foundation. I don't know if we can get that up on the screen. Is it? Anyway? Yeah, anyway. And we have projects in 14 different places around the country, and we're as far away from Yerevan as possible. So I'm thrilled with the TUMO Center, I'm thrilled with the AGBU School, I'm thrilled with the Dilijan UWC School, and all these great other projects. I'm out in the villages, telling women that it's possible. Creating things using traditional skills. That's our mantra. Jobs, jobs for women, jobs in the regions of Armenia, jobs using traditional skills. And right now, talking about branding, for example, we have, is that me doing that? Yeah. Talking about branding, I think it's very important. I'm thrilled to see the wine industry taking off with Vahe, who's sitting in the audience here, and all the other wine companies. And the jewelry industry has a kind of a decent brand in Armenia already. The IT definitely is taking off. I was in California recently talking at the Innovate Armenia event, and Alexis Ohanyan was talking about the IT revolution in Armenia, and it's correct, it's great. And when I said, okay, you have your keyboards, we have our crochet hooks. So we are crocheting like crazy. And I want to show you, just to give you an example. China's a cheap place to produce, right? Everything that we can make here, they can make cheaper in China. I want to show you something very quickly. I have a baby rattle. This is made in Kapan, in the south. I did some research on the internet, found a baby rattle almost exactly like this one, and their price was $2.98 FOB. Ours is $3.10 from Armenia. Our quality is better, our MOQ is smaller, our delivery time is shorter. There's no way you're going to tell me that China can beat Armenia on producing this product. So what I'm saying, we don't need to do the big projects to find a niche where Armenia can compete. We can compete on the very, very small niches, which include, in my case, crochet. And I don't know what else there is out there. I want to show you another thing. I'm very proud of this guy. I love this guy. This is perhaps the most highest quality handmade teddy bear you will find in the world. Does anybody know where it's made? Baird. We've done a good job on our marketing. Yeah. This is a Baird bear. This bear is produced 4 kilometers from the front line with Azerbaijan. The road to get to our project is dangerous. We have to take the back road to get there. We need to support these women. That's the emotional side of things. So yes, we can get emotional about the woman who makes this, about the disabled woman up in Goghovit who makes sweaters with the AGBU on it. But what's better is that we can compete. We can sell. And each of you had your phrases saying the phrase you didn't like in Armenian. The phrase I don't like in Armenian is shuka chika. Shuka ka.
Okay.
Իհարկե.
In this audience, there are a lot of Armenians from different parts of the world: Australia, Europe, United States. For each of them, the meaning of international standing is differ. For example, in Russia, it means be legal. In Europe, it means doing legal business. In United States, smoke marijuana but be legal, or something else. For example, but for each and every one, meaning international standing is very different. How can we unify this meaning for every Armenian in every corner of the world, Mr. Vartanyan? And saying that, yesterday we were discussing about the challenges of building Armenian state and using human capital, and the core of the discussion was, do we need somehow national ideology or a guideline for every Armenian, no matter where he is right now, or it's very unique and very different for everyone?
It's a very difficult question, and I'm not sure I know the answer. I will say my personal opinion about this point. It's just all nations struggling about this, because it's a question, what is the unified nation? And it's becoming a big question, not only for us. I think it's a question for big countries and small countries, and countries have a lot of multinational communities or mononational like Japan. We're all struggling about this question which you're asking, how to identify what this will be connectivity between the different groups. I think one of the key, what I tried to do in the last 15 years with my friends and colleagues, is to put the dream about the future, because one of the things that unified us is two things unified us: pride and fear. The pride, when you are proud to be Armenian, when you want to be Armenian, you want to be such a nation that's successful. And success means not only by how much money you earn, but general life standard, how people recognize your nation, success, and many other elements. And what is the best wine is a French wine. You were saying, no, best is Armenian something. And this is one of the important, because today we don't have a big brands. And one of the points, what is Armenia recognized in the world, is a big question. There's a chess players. We have something which can be proud, but continues. What is the Armenians, what they're doing is the best, is a good question. But being pride, the pride is a big driver. The other is a fear, which is also a big unified element, which is, unfortunately, was a very big driver for us. And one of the points which we are talking about is genocide. as we are being in survival mood. And to be from survival to prosperity, to think differently, to be out of the box, thinking more successful, you can do it, we can achieve it, we are strong, and we can do it despite all the problems. I think it's one of the elements which really can bring us back to the common denomination, saying we want to be Armenian, despite we are born in America, or I'm born in Australia, or I'm born in Russia, and I continue feeling myself I'm Armenian. And you know, when we did this Armenia 2020, we did a survey in diaspora. It was done by from Harvard University. Michael Porter students did this for us. It was very interesting. We asked the question in diaspora, why you feel you're Armenian? Because of your religion, because of your blood, because of your parents. And the majority of the answer was because of my own choice, which was an amazing answer to if you feel about it, because it's the most strongest answer people can say, keeping their identity, saying I want to feel Armenian, despite I'm 1/4 Armenian, or I'm half Armenian, or I've never been in Armenia, I can speak in Armenian, but I feel like I'm Armenian. And I think it's a very important element which we need to keep this element in the future. We need to put some dreams which we need to identify by being the best in some area, being different, and being proud of who we are. How to do it is a good question. Doing some project like we are discussing today, or doing something more about 30, 50, 100 years ahead. It's an important discussion that needs to be between us. I'm not sure I know an answer today, but I'm only what I believe very strongly. If we will not change our attitude from the survival to prosperity, from being just keeping our life saying, oh, ամեն ինչ վատ է, եւ մենք մեր ձեռը չի, մենք ուրիշից ենք կախված, մեր Ռուսաստանից, Թուրքիայից, Ամերիկայից, մենք ապագա չունենք. I'm sure we don't have a future. We will not say it's everything in our hand. It's our future, and this will give us a chance to keep Armenian identity really strong. Without this, I don't think we have a future.
Thank you. Vazgen?
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, do we need a kind of set of rules or unified document naming national ideology for every Armenian?
Can we get the tech, put it on? Okay. I'll talk until he gets the slides up, because I like to show you a couple of slides how we work from 26 different offices around the world, including India and China, Middle East. And we've done work in more than 60 countries around the world. So we have pretty good knowledge and information about different cultures, how different cultures work around the world. But I have to say, there's a common denominator. The common denominator is always, believe it or not, even the most important thing in creating brands, whether it's a product brand, company brand, location, city, or a country, are the values. When we talk about values, we're not talking about monetary values. We're talking about human intrinsic values that collectively societies or organizations like AGBU. Let me just tell you, the reason why I'm here today, I agreed to come today because I had something really, really important that I had to miss in Paris, is because AGBU's values and Vasken Yakubian values are similar to my values. And that's why I'm here today. Now, values are a powerful magnet that will attract the right customer to you, the right employees, the right citizens, the right politicians, the right president, on and on and on. If you're not clear about your values, then you're lost. You become like Enron, multi-billion-dollar company, short lifespan. As a matter of fact, most of the companies, Fortune 500 companies, and a lot of them that we've worked with since the 70s, are not even in business anymore. An average lifespan of a Fortune 500 company is only about 40, 50 years old. And there are a few companies that are older, and there are a handful of companies that are 500 to 700 years old. None of them are American because America wasn't found yet. So what I want to do is quickly show you a few slides how we produce brands that speak to this clearly. Hello?
They are.
Oh, they're up? I can't see it on my screen.
Yes.
Can we get it up there so I see what I'm not seeing it on my screen. It disappeared on my screen. Sorry. Okay, so forget it. I don't need the slides. The first point is authenticity. There are 4 key points in creating successful brands, whether it's a country or a product or an institution like AGBU or Dilijan School or AUA and so on. The first key point is authenticity. Authenticity is paramount. You can't lie about it. I cannot lie or cheat about this product, promise something, and it's going to deliver something else, because it takes 20 years to build reputation and 2 seconds to destroy it. So this is why it's so important to guard your reputation and to be honest, truthful about it. Unfortunately, in this former Soviet parts of the world, because we do work in Kazakhstan, we've done work in Azerbaijan, because in the Soviet time, propaganda meant that you told lies to fool the people. Well, you could fool the people sometimes, but you can't fool the people all the time. So the first thing is authenticity. You have to be honest, you have to be truthful. So what this means is that we branded Washington, D.C. When Washington, D.C. was full of homeless people, garbage in the streets, worse than some places in Armenia, unemployment, and crime. Now, the people who wanted us to brand the city didn't wait until everything was perfect, but what we did is we started from a very important place. We didn't lie to people and we say, come to Washington, D.C., there's no crime, there's no unemployment, there's no homelessness, and there's no garbage on the streets. No, we didn't say that. Our research, and this is why research is so important, showed that what is really important in Washington, D.C. for Americans or for other people is the fact that it's the center of power. So we built the whole brand on the concept of power, and Washington, D.C. being the center of power. So we built the campaign based on that. For example, power, you have the power to lobby the DJ at a club. You have flower power to see the pink, beautiful cherry blossoms. So the whole concept around that. As tourists began to come back, slowly we changed the campaign, and the money that was pouring in from tourism, the city was smart enough to take the money and invest in sanitation, invest in homeless, in in security and police and so on. The next point that's really important, the way you create successful brands, especially when it comes to place branding, is it's really important when you have so many stories. Like in a place like Armenia, I'm sure all of you have so many stories you want to tell. But we all have to agree one unified message. You can't have so many messages because it confuses people. It doesn't mean that when we are in front of the right person who is interested in tourism, we're not going to focus on tourism, or we're in front of an investor, we're not going to talk about business or education and so on. But the overall message has to be unified. So these are the key ways how we create powerful brands based on values, authenticity, and unified message. Thank you.
Thank you. Victoria?
Well, I think, again, the role of the individual is most important, and each of us can be a brand ambassador for the country. There's so much that we have to tell about our secular and religious history, being the first Christian nation, being among the first philosophers, having the world's oldest winery, and our country is a gem, and we're in the epicenter of the historic world, definitely in terms of wine. I think people just need to know about it, and each of us can do that by talking about it at length, often.
All right, thank you. Too much.
As a non-Armenian, I think I have a particular role in that, and that I've lived here. I know this country. I know a lot of villages in this country, a lot of people in the villages of this country, and what they can do and what they can offer. And so I was just in Los Angeles 4 weeks ago and discovered that I have a role as an ambassador for this country to inform what this country is really about. And we need 1,000 more of these. We need to talk up the stories. I tell the stories of the disabled woman in Goghovit, Manush, who makes sweaters, or the disabled man in Margohovit who makes wooden puzzles. Each, as you said, each of us has our stories, and it's rich and it's emotion about this country that's going to sell this country under a unified theme, as you said.
All right, and my last question, and then we're going to start Q&A. Mr. Vartanyan, now the Armenian billionaires are divided into you are Ruben Vartanyan type or you are not Ruben Vartanyan type, meaning that you are an inspiration for a lot of people. So you create yourself as a brand of being a man who has dreams. I know.
By weight or by beer?
And I remember your speech during Tatevers when you said that everything has started with your dream and then kind of executing of this dream. Can you say how can we, what we can do to encourage people to do something that matters to a lot of people? Because you had money, I mean, you could have doing something else in Monaco or Las Vegas, but instead you've been choosing to do such a great project. So,
okay, maybe before I answer your question, maybe I will show one small movie which we made it by a real story. It was happened in Dilijan. Is it possible, Lena, to the Dilijan bus station discussion about the school? На армянской остановке, да, что just I want. It's a real story, by the way. I want to show.
Is it video? Video?
No.
Okay.
It's a 1 minute and.
Սկզբից մտածում ենք ինչ-որ առևտրական կենտրոն պետք է կառուցել։ Կամ հյուրանոց, կամ էլ
դպրոց։
Դպրոց։ Այդ ձևի դպրոց Դիլիջանը ում է պետք։
Իմ աղջկա։
Yeah, I think it's a story. And this one of the kids, by the way, we have from Dilijan in our school. To having dream and to be, I always said it's a big privilege when you living in a global world, feeling your nationality, feeling your nationality not because just you like the food or you like the traditions, but you feeling your identity. Especially, again, we are all now having opportunity to live really in Moscow, London, Singapore, and do our business in different places. But when you have your motherland and you're feeling you're part belong to this motherland and you want to give something back, it makes you much stronger and richer. That's why I say it's another question where you can put your money. It's a question how strong you want to feel yourself when you're part of some group of people which you belong. And you belong with all understanding it's a plus and minuses. We're talking about positive sides of their being Armenian, but you have a negative part being Armenian also, and this doesn't matter for you because you are just Armenian. And realizing dream is one of the, I think, biggest advantage a person can have. Because you have a dream, your realization is you feeling you're doing something which really is not imaginable. When you're kids, you're dreaming, right? And in kids, your dream becoming true is one of the best things that you can do in your life. And especially when you're doing it for the future generation. And one of the main drivers for me being always, I look about myself, say, okay, I want my kids to be proud being Armenian. I want my grandkids to feel that they are Armenian, be proud. And I cannot just do it because teaching them Armenian or giving them just a lot of money. It's a question about they need to feel that they are Armenian and they be proud being Armenian because they belong to some nations who leave huge legacy for the world, hundreds of thousands of years, 100 years, 1,000 years. And it's not only by past, but also present, and the future will do the same. So I would say it's a fantastic feeling what you're doing it all and see the results. And I believe it's a lot of things doing. You don't need to be a billionaire or you don't need to be a very rich person. And I agree with the stories what we are talking about. It's small. You can do it in your own levels. And some people doing it without looking at it's a big amount of money. It's just a question inside yourself. Do you have this type of the patience and believe this is the critical for yourself? And another point is, like I was saying, I like to break the type of the perceptions. The perception is always, this is impossible. You can always find the reason why it's impossible. You can always find many reasons saying how difficult it will be. But doing something and really changing this type of the reality around you, I think one of the important things that makes me inspired and feel energized. That's why to find the reason to do it when everybody says it's impossible, like building the school in Dilijan or doing it in Tatev. I remember we did a ropeway in a cable car in Tatev. Everybody said, "Are you crazy? What you're doing in a cable car in Tatev? There is nobody going." And I remember it was the biggest consulting company in the world. So looked the numbers and to me, it's impossible. It's only 3,800 people going to Tatev during the year, and your smallest cabin, the cabin for the cable car is 25 seats, which will never pay back you ever money or you'll never cover expenses. And now when this year, last year we got 150,000 people went to Tatev, and from each 100,000 take the cable car. I think everything is possible. It's showing this is absolutely all in your hand. That's why I think I like it, this type of the belief this is what we're doing is doing for our kids, we're doing for our future, and it's an absolutely great opportunity to change this type of the mindset that everything is in our hand and everything is possible.
Now is the time for question and answers, and also we have guests here that if you want to contribute to the discussion, we will be glad to hear. Vartan Oskayan is here. Thank you for coming, Mr. Oskayan. So if you want to say something, sure, go ahead. Here's the mic.
Well, first, let me thank you, the AGBU, for organizing these talks. I've been following live the previous 2 talks, and I'm present physically here today. And it's wonderful. As Rupen said, we got to change the mindset of our people. This is one of the ways to do it. And the interest that I see among the youth is fascinating, and it's very encouraging. Our people need to be taught, new culture needs to be introduced. The discussion on the video about the school is very typical of the knee-jerk reaction that our people have about this kind of development, this kind of ideas. So more we do of this type of events where we can bring the right culture that is more compatible with the vision we have about our country's future, faster we can change our country. But there's one element that we need to include in our all discussions, and that is the country, Armenia itself. No matter what we do here and there, different people, different projects, at the end of the day, the world would look to our country, how it is presented, how is it projected in global ratings, how the IMF rates Armenia, how the Heritage Foundation grades us among the democracies. So as we work from bottom up to fix our country through this kind of projects, we need also to work from top to down so that we fix the image of our country for the outside world, so that what we do through this kind of projects and as we advocate, each of us as our ambassadors to the people about the goodness of our country, the two will match. What Vasken said, authenticity needs to be taken to a higher level. We need to be authentic, everything about what we say, what we do. So you encourage a person, a tourist, to come to Armenia on an image that we individually project, then that person will be disappointed. You get to the airport, they say, wow, we've come to Singapore, a small Singapore. But you go, take the route to the city, you'll see the third world country image. As you get to the city, then you have the center. Once you go around the periphery and travel the villages, again, the frustration sets in. So we need to be authentic about everything we do, but our focus also should be, as we do things individually, on our country, so that we fix it as fast as we can to make it more democratic. So we open up our economy, we fight the corruption, to put an end to the monopolies. So these are the kind of things that we need to be part of our daily life, as each of us individually, people like Rupen, Betsetrakian, and others, as we do our projects, we also have the bigger picture that at the end of the day, people will look to Armenia, not to the Dilijan school, and that big picture, I think, will be the real incentive for the outsiders to look into Armenia in a more generic way. Thank you.
I know that Hovik Musaelian has something to say since yesterday.
Շնորհակալություն։ Նախ ուզում եմ շնորհակալություն հայտնեմ նման հանդիպում կազմակերպելու համար։ Ես կարծում եմ, որ նման հանդիպումները պետք է հաճախ լինեն եւ շատ կարեւոր խոսակցություններ գնամ այստեղ։ Երկրի ապագայի համար կարեւոր խոսակցություններ։ Պարոն Վարդանյանն ասաց, որ այսօր եւ փոքր եւ մեծ ազգերի համար շատ կարեւոր խնդիր է, թե որն է իրենց ազգային մրցակցային առավելությունը։ Մենք հայերս էլ պետք է հասկանանք, որն է վերջապես մեր ազգային մրցակցային առավելությունը։ Ինչով ենք մենք տարբերվում այլ ազգերից։ Տեսեք, հաճախ ենք մեզ համեմատում հրեաների, Իսրայելի հետ։ Հրեաներն ասում են եւ ասել են, որ իրենք ուրիշ են։ Իրենք տարբերվում են բոլորից եւ նպատակամղված գնում են այդ ճանապարհով։ Մենք նույնպես պիտի ասենք, որ մենք ուրիշ ենք։ Ոչ թե երկիրը երկիր չի, մեկը ոչ մի բան չի ստացվի, չէ, մենք ուրիշ ենք, որովհետեւ մենք ունենք հստակ մի ազգային մրցակցային առավելություն։ Դա մեր հարմարվելու ձիրքն է։ Մենք շատ արագ հարմարվում ենք, ես IT ոլորտն եմ ներկայացնում, մեր ինժեներները շատ արագ հարմարվում են նոր տեխնոլոգիաներին։ Տեխնոլոգիաները դինամիկ, անընդհատ, ամեն վայրկյան փոխվում են։ Եվ մի կարծեք, որ հայերը գենետիկ ծրագրավորողներն են, սուտ է, այտենց բան չկա, կամ խելացի են այլ ազգերից եւ այլն, դրանք հեքիաթներ են։ Մենք ունենք մի հստակ ազգային մրցակցային առավելություն։ Դա շուտ յուրացնելու, հարմարվելու մեր ձիրքն է եւ Սփյուռքի պատմությունն է դրա ապացույցը։ Շատ արագ հարմարվեցին մեր հայրենակիցները այս վերջի 100-ամյակի ընթացքում, այսօր էլ ամեն մի հայի մեջ քնած մի հատ գեն կա, արտագաղթող հայի մեջ նույն։ Իրան թվում է, թե ինքը շատ արագ պետք է հարմարվի ու հաջողության հասնի դրսում։ Ուրիշ ազգերը ոչ թե չեն ուզում արտագաղթել, այլ նրանք վախենում են, որ դրսում իրենք հաջողության կհասնեն։ Ես մի հատ օրինակ բերեմ։ Սինոպսիս ընկերությունում, դուք գիտեք, մենք կրթական ծրագիր ունենք, պատկերացրեք, 8-րդ դասարանը գյուղերում ավարտող երեխան գալիս է Երևան, ընդունվում է, ասենք, պոլիտեխնիկ կամ պետհամալսարան, 4 տարի սովորում է, հետո աշխատում է մեզ մոտ, հետո մենք գործողում ենք Միացյալ Նահանգներ, Կանադա, Եվրոպա, քանի տարի անցավ գյուղից դուրս գալուց։ Մոտ 6-7 տարի, չէ՞։ Այդ 6-7 տարվա ընթացքում այս երեխաները 3-4 անգամ ստրես են ապրում։ Գյուղից քաղաք, քաղաքում նոր բուհ են ընդունվում, բուհից գալիս են ամերիկյան ընկերությունն ավարտելուց հետո գնում են գործողման։ Եվ ինչ եք կարծում, 6-7 տարի հետո իրանք զգում են, ոնց որ այդ երկրի քաղաքացի, մարդիկ օտարները զարմանում են։ Ոնց են այս մարդիկ այս կարճ ժամանակամիջոցում գալիս եւ հարմարվում այդ միջավայրին։ Եվ այս առումով ինձ թվում է, որ մենք մի հատ նաև բաց ունենք։ Մենք Վազգենը խոսում էր բրենդինգի հետ կապված, որ զրուցումը կարող է այստեղ մեզ շատերին հիասթափացնի եւ այլն, չհիասթափացնելու մի ձև կա։ Մենք շատ քիչ բան գիտենք մեր մասին։ Ես այն օրը պոլիտեխնիկում լսարանում ուսանողներին հարցնում եմ, ձեզանից քանի հոգի է եղել Ղարաբաղում։ 10%-ն էլ չէր եղել Ղարաբաղում։ Քանի տոկոսն են եղել Տաթևում։ Պարոն Վարդանյան, դուք ասում եք 50,000 մարդ է եղել, այդ 50,000-ից քանիսն են հայաստանցի եղել։ Մենք մեր երկիրը ընդհանրապես չգիտենք։ Հայկական բարեգործական ընդհանուր միության պատվիրակությունը ուղղակի երջանիկ պահեր է ապրել այս քանի օրվա ընթացքում, լինելով Թումոյում, Դիլիջանի դպրոցում, Սինոպսիսում, AGBU-ում, իսկ քանի հայաստանցիներ գիտեն այս ընդհանրապես այս ծրագրերի մասին, շատ քիչ։ Դրա համար էլ հիասթափվում են անընդհատ։ Իրանց թվում է, թե ամեն ինչ այնքան սևով է պատված, որ մեկ-մեկ սփյուռքահայերը նույնպես զարմանում են, ասում են, այ այս հայաստանցիներ ինչի են այսքան փնփնթում, անընդհատ ասում, որ ամեն ինչ վատ է, վատ է, վատ է։ Մի խոսքով, մեր մրցակցային առավելությունը միայն մեկն է, մենք պետք է կարողանանք դա օգտագործել, շուտ յուրացնելու, հարմարվելու բան, եւ բոլորս ամեն մեկս մտածենք, ինչպես պարոն Վարդանյանը, մեր երազները իրականացնելու մասին։ Եվ իսկապես պետք չի դրա համար միլիարդատեր, միլիոնատեր լինել։ Շատ ուրիշ ճանապարհներ կան դրան հասնելու։ Շնորհակալություն։
Questions? Okay, go ahead. There is a mic. You can ask.
Here.
Here. There.
Sorry.
Վանանե Արարքցյան, իմ հարցը բարձ թողնչի, բայց այսպեսին է, յուրաքանչյուր կարող եք նշել երկու բան, որ 20 տարի անց Հայաստանում կցանկանայիք տեսնել փոխված, կարևորագույն բան։
Two things that you can mention that can be changed or will be changed in 20 years.
The question is to improve it?
Huh? Would like to be
Like
changed.
She's asking to
Everybody. Similar question from web, Վարդգես Դավթյան, Լուկաշինի գյուղատնտեսական ասոցիացիա.
I would say the key, my dream is education. We lost our competitive advantage. We've been the most educated nation in the region. We spoke, taxi driver in Beirut, in Armenia, in our region, speak 5 languages. It's normal, okay? We lost Russian, we didn't learn English. We cannot speak Armenian very well. And I think one of the biggest competitive advantages is being adaptive. But adaptive, why we've been adaptive? Because we have been living in other countries. We've been immediately, from the beginning, learning our own alphabet and alphabet of the country we've been living. And education was our key criteria for success. All Armenians went to the schools and tried to learn and read the books, and was one of the big driver. And we've been spending money, second of the food, for education. Whatever in the Soviet system became very dangerous for us because getting diploma became more important compared to getting the knowledge. And I think the 21st century, what I'm dreaming, will have a really country where people will live and will speak at least 3 languages, will learn, and we've been best standard education in the worldwide. And this will be again our biggest competitive advantage in the world, but we've been one of the most educated nations. The second, I will say, is coming from survival to prosperity, coming out of this victimization trap we are living. We are a victimized nation, always trying to think about we've been punished, we didn't have a bad history, we don't have a future. This type of the attitude will not bring us in success. The success needs to think big. You need to be out of the box. You need to think yourself what you can do to achieve everything. And achieving everything by not just hoping somebody will help you. We're always trying to depend from somebody, from other neighboring countries, or because of somebody will do for us something. We need to come back to achieve everything depends from us, and we can do everything as possible. That's why this attitude changing, mental changes, education, and going from survival to prosperity, from the victimization attitude to the nations who, despite everything, will become winner. It's very important for me to change it. I hope it will happen in 20 years' time in Armenia.
Mr. Dilijan?
2 things. First, there's a story, American story, that says you give someone fish and they eat one day, and you teach them how to fish and they can fish lifetime or something like that. I would go further than that. I would say teach people prosperity consciousness. The difference between a poor country and a rich country, or a poor person and a rich person, okay, education has something to do with it. But at the end of the day, if you look at all the billionaires in the world, a lot of them don't have a lot of, Harvard education. It's really the prosperity consciousness. How does that work, prosperity consciousness? Often, people have, I've noticed, here, especially with government civil servants, there's always 4 objections that they have. People don't believe you, what you're saying. Like my wife, Jacqueline Karaslanyan, she's executive director of Luis Foundation. She brought this technology to Armenia 5 years ago called Living Arts. For 5 years, people didn't believe her. Finally, last summer, she put together the artisans, the designers, the technologists, the IT people, and they created this amazing living art jewelry in 2 weeks. Unbelievable. In Gyumri, in 2 weeks. And now to this day, they haven't been able to get investors to bring this product to market because people, A, they don't believe you. 2, they think that it's not going to work here. Just recently, we saw on the internet Turkish designers with Intel. They've copied exactly what our people did in Gyumri last summer. They copied us. Unbelievable.
Is it
the
good
other
or
thing,
bad? Is
what?
it good or bad?
Yeah, it's on the internet. It's unbelievable. The technology is copied. So, of course, I advise Jacqueline that they should get lawyers and sue them because, this was intellectual property theft, The third thing is, so the first thing is people don't believe you. By the time we explain something to the people here, let's say in government, by the time, so their first objection, they don't believe you. The second objection, they say, it's not going to work here. The third thing that they say, we don't have enough money. Or we don't have enough time to do this. Both of those things time and money has to do with prosperity consciousness. So I would say that this first thing is how to teach everyone this concept of prosperity consciousness, that you could actually think something and manifest it and make it, and you don't have to be a billionaire, although it helps to have money, but you don't have to. I'll give you an example. This year, my stepdaughter, Jacqueline's daughter, came to do, she's a art curator. She came to do some art with Beijing. Now, by the time the government officials and all these people moved, she's a New Yorker. She's like us. We work in real time. The way the world is moving, the world is moving very fast. She couldn't wait anymore. She didn't have any money. She raised money on Indiegogo. She started a startup called Pop-Up, and now she's really successful. She's already doing her second show. So you don't need money to do this. If you have the will, you could do it. So I would say the first thing is this. And am I talking too much? Should I?
A little bit.
I'll let someone else.
Okay, thank you, Vika.
I'll let someone else talk up.
So within our nation, I think what's going to prove for the most sustainable development, and it's the development of the agricultural sector. Only 30% of our arable land is actually cultivated. And I think that the international public should be able to taste the flavors and aromas of the vegetables and fruits that come from the gardens of Armenia. And I think that could be another sector that will have development. And because 2/3 of our population live in the rural areas, with some economic capabilities, they will have more access to all of these wonderful things that are happening within the city and in schools such as this. And on the outside, again, we can have a market share of world production in wine and fruits and vegetables. I think that's what's going to be most sustainable for our country and our image.
All right, thank you.
Difficult. You said 10 years? 20.
20.
20. Okay, I've been here 15. I still firmly believe that open borders would be a key to growth of this country. Mostly outside of our hands, but that has to be a goal for this country. Secondly, belief in the future. That's an internal thing, but perhaps just as hard to do. Because out in the villages, I don't meet a lot of, yes, I want to do this, I believe in this, I trust you, let's do this. I meet a lot of, as I said, chuka chuka, why should I do this, why should I? It's not possible, I've never done this, why? So trust in the future, open borders.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's hear Sara Anjargolian, Impact Hub. Where are you? Sara? Oh, okay.
Sorry, I wasn't expecting that. Thank you very much.
Here's the mic.
To ask a question? Oh, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Anjargolian, representing Impact Hub Yerevan, along with my colleague Vahe Koshgerian, sitting here next to me. We are an international organization. There's 68 impact hubs around the world, from Singapore to Berlin to Paris, all the way to Tokyo. And I'm super excited to announce that we have just received the license to open an impact hub here in Yerevan. It is a space where social innovators from all walks of life, nonprofit organizations, the IT sector, professional services sector, come together to work under the same roof. So that's the idea of the Impact Hub, and we're looking forward to opening in September of 2015.
Thank you. My name is Vahe Koshgerian. Yes. My name is Vahe Koshgerian, and most people know me as the wine guy in Armenia. And with colleagues with Victoria, and we're working on changing the narrative of the industry. And we have big hopes because we have a lot to work with. Yes, we have natural soil and a lot that we are able to do. But what the wine industry is representing now is how we can do successful projects individually and how we can figure out a way that we can do it collectively. Because it's not that one winery can change anything, it is the whole industry has to understand it. So once we figure out how to do quality products, but all of us do quality products, we understand the importance of what we do for the nation, it will be wonderful for everybody. And I think it can be duplicated in everywhere else we do. And my hope, and having learned being near Ruben so long, and Mr. Ernekian also, is that there is power. And when you see people passionate, and they do things world class. When you do things world class, people help you, they're next to you, they believe in you, and they walk the walk with you. So it is very important that whatever else we do from this day on, and anytime we can, we have to think, envision things in a world class, in a big kind of way. We can't afford to be small. We cannot afford to be better than the Georgians or the Azeris. We have to think that we have to be Armenia as a nation in a very big vision. And whatever we do, including governance, democracy, everything we do, we have to do it differently. And what we can do is be a model for other nations so that people can say, Armenia did it, so can we. So there's nothing that stops us. It's all in us that we can do. Thank you.
Հարցս ուզում եմ ուղղել պարոն Վարդանյանին եւ ներկա խոսնակներին։ Հարցը գնում է վախի մասին։ Դուք նշեցիք, որ վախը դա ներկա այն ուժն է, որը համախմբում է ամբողջ հայությանը եւ ներսում եւ դրսում։ Վախը որպես մեխանիզմ ինքը եւ մարդու եւ պետության ժողովրդի համար պաշտպանական մեխանիզմ է։ Եվ մենք բոլորս գիտակցում ենք եւ շատ անգամ ներկա իրականությունը երկրի անվտանգությունից ելնելով շատ օրենքներ են ընդունվում։ Կուզեի հարցս այսպիսին է. ինչ դեղատոմս կառաջարկեք մեր ազգային վախից ձերբազատվելու համար։ Եվ որպես օրինակ Ավետարանից մի խոսք բերեմ, այնտեղ գրված է, որ կատարյալ սերը հեռացնում է ամեն տեսակի վախ։ Դուք ինչ դեղատոմս կառաջարկեք մեր ազգային վախից ձերբազատվելու համար։ Շնորհակալություն։
It's հարցը մի կես ժամը խաղացան մասին է դա հեշտ չի պատասխանել եգոպեով, բայց փորձեմ I'll say it's an interesting point, and by the way, when we spoke about fear, I want to remind you that the fear can be also quite interestingly driver of transformation. For example, despite we are all quite negative about Stalin time, the transformation of the Soviet Union was done by fear, and it was based by big industrial revolution. The other example is Jewish nation. Jewish nation always said, we're in a big threat, everybody wants to kill us, everybody hates us. This is why we need to come together, otherwise alone will be not survival. This is why the mechanism of the trying to use the fear, which unified you in some way, we are unique, we are the best, but we are under big threat. This is the mechanism sometimes can be used very well. It can be forever, because some period of time people will say it's not working. Like what's happening now with Israel is a very interesting situation. In America, there's a lot of resistance coming about how Israel like state behaving, because the question under fear, it cannot be anymore used because it's not so strong resistance exists inside, outside of Israel. So I'll say the fear, it's, and by the way, Inquisition in some way was pushing of the Reformation and Renaissance in the medieval. Also, it was an interesting example of the transformation which was pushed by Inquisition, which created a lot of fear and a lot of problems for the nations who've been living in Europe. Coming back on your question about I think the fear needs to be used positively, because the fear not to be best is also one of the instinct driver, because it can be different fear. Fear, I'm just in dangers, or fear, I don't want to be last, I want to be first. That's why the fear which will drive you positively, it can be, as I say, I don't think we can ever escape from the fear, no person, no nation. We convert the fear from negative to positive is the issue that we need to work. In my opinion, the main point is the fear what we have been facing 100 years ago. We cannot live with this fear anymore. We say we are alive, we are strong, we are nations. We despite all the Turk did with us, we are existing and we are doing a lot for the world, and we are strong. This is why we need to be careful. We need to be understand we can under danger, but the fear from just being survival or just living very low level just to keep ourselves in life is not possible to keep. It's why to transfer this fear from the survival and just keeping a low profile to the being saying we are strong and we are alive. This is the thing which I think is really about. But anyway, it's a long discussion about the fear, and can debate about many points that I said. And a lot of things will be discussable definitely between different people, and it's a lot of arguments pro and contra about how fear can be used from development.
Okay, a provocative question from me. Why do we care so much about what other people think of us? Why don't we, what can we be like Greeks? I mean, after Alexander the Great, they don't have any worldwide leader. After Onassis, they didn't have any worldwide billionaires. I mean, we did have Oleg Manukyan, we have Kirkoryan, we have Samuel Karapetyan, Ruben Vartanyan. We have a lot of things. We have Kim Kardashian, for the guy's sake. So, I mean, why do we care so much what other people think of us? Why is this something narcissistic, or is it something that it's very, I don't know, typical for the small nations to care about so much the Armenization, that we make Armenian everyone that we've met, or find something Armenian roots, and also the thing that we constantly trying to prove that we are a quality nation. I mean, we have a great history, we have ups and downs, we have a lot of things that are what the world is talking about us. Why do we need to concentrate so much about what other nations think about us? Vazgen. I mean, in terms of tourists,
in terms of
90% of tourists are Armenians. So why do we care that the other nations will come? Because they wouldn't come. I mean, they go to Georgia or somewhere else. I disagree with my question, but
there are several reasons, but according to our research, there are two parts to this. Two parts. One part is the existing stories that Armenians have. Because remember, we've only had a free Armenia now for 20-some years, right? Before that, the stories that we had, even as a kid, it used to be at some point we were a great empire, we had kings, we had big territories, and then this happened. And then the other story other people told was that we used to be part of Soviet Union, and then the Soviet Union broke apart, and now we're free, and then there's all these Stan countries, unless you're doing business, you don't know Kazakhstan. Most people know Kazakhstan because we do business there, or Azerbaijan. Then the other story is, okay, there was this big genocide, on and on and on. So there's these certain stories that popped up in our research. So one of the things that we have to do is we have to have a new, powerful story. The other thing is...
Well, the problem is it's not the powerful story. We suffer from our history. Instead of enjoying our
That's the
history.
second part.
The problem is we had the great Armenia. Let's enjoy the fact not to suffer and cry constantly for over 700 years that we had something and we lost it. I mean, Greek had a greater, a country before Armenians, but they don't cry over the history.
The second part is the victim. The victim, which I really, really love what Ruben is doing with this 100 lives. That's totally my philosophy. Now, on an archetype wheel, we have 12 different archetypes in terms of how we sell brands and countries and companies. On that wheel, there is no victim on there because nobody wants to buy a victim product. Nobody wants to visit a victim country. Nobody wants to support a victim cause. The only person that I know was my former mother-in-law. She went to Poland to visit Auschwitz because her family were in Auschwitz. They were Jewish. My ex, this is my ex-mother-in-law. So the only people, so do we want to be part of a victimized, like the way the Jews are? We don't want to be part of that. So the best way to leapfrog the victim, because the victim is not working, it's not who you are. I don't see any victims here. I see a lot of successful business people, heads of organizations. I'm not a victim. You're not a victim. I don't know how we got stuck with this genocide victimized thing. It had to do maybe with the Tashnag or some parties. I don't know who did this, but they sold you a really wrong label. And the best example to learn from is the great director Spielberg. Spielberg, he's Jewish. He learned and understood that the victim, this poor Jew, is not going to sell. So the last movie he made about the Holocaust was not about the Holocaust. It was about Schindler. Schindler was a hero. He was a hero. He created jobs for Jews because as long as they were working, he kept them alive. And at the end of the movie, they honored him as a hero, as the righteous ones. And so this is what we have to do.
Great movie written by Armenian screenwriter Dilijan,
exactly.
That got him Oscar.
So this is the two things that we have to remember.
All right, thank you.
I don't think that we're speaking about ourselves as victims anymore. I can speak for my generation and those quite younger than me that I have the privilege of working with, and we're very much about the resilience, and we're very much about celebrating each other. And I think the more we do that, the more people will like us, and there's nothing wrong with that, because we want them to come to our country, and we want them to buy our products, and that caring about what they think of us comes from pride. And I think that's what really unifies us as Armenians, our cultural pride.
But coming back to your question, why we're so egocentric about ourselves, one of the points, we've been living in always like last thousand years in other states. And to become successful when you are living in not only your state, you know the best. Okay, this Armenian being pushed to be best. We've been more educated, speak more languages, more risk taker, traveling abroad, trying to be between Christian and Muslim world intermediary. And for us, being best was one of the chances to survive. Now what's happening, and this is why becoming so, it's all about past 200 years, last 200 years, as soon as Ottoman Empire started to decline because of the civilization moved to the Western Europe and the United States, we are facing interesting situation. Our region become mediocre, we become mediocre. And one of the points why you're trying to be yourself, we're not mediocre, saying, oh, we had a great history, we're trying to keep ourselves in the same league, which we're not anymore, just trying to say, using the past, is just type of the drivers who keep us being continue proud. And we're trying to find all Armenian roots with any famous person, because it's not anymore we're really feeling that we are strong in this region, or we are really part of the civilization intermediary. Because we've been, again, I'm continuing saying, looking back in history, 2,000 years Armenians been benefiting and been punished, being in the border of the two civilizations. We've been living between two civilizations, Christian and non-Christian Muslim, again, Roman and Parthian, and it was give us an advantage, which we're not having anymore. And now we're trying to keep ourselves back, just saying, oh, we are the best in something, or he's a quarter Armenian, or his mother and stepmother is Armenian, like Steve Jobs is also Armenian. It just try to keep ourselves in the top. This is why I think one of the points why we're trying to be always is too much talking about Armenians.
Timothy, you have something to say, or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the baggage. I'm not Armenian, and so it's difficult for me to understand the depth of the emotion on this issue. But my experience in speaking with individuals in small villages all over this country is the approach is kind of skeptical, but once you open a door for them and you say it's possible, yes, you can do this, and you put a few thousand drams in their hand from the first sale of their first product, that it's amazing how they blossom. I mean, really blossom when they're given the opportunity, when the doors open and they're allowed to show what they can do.
Yes. Okay. I'm Carol Aslanian, and I'm with the Central Board of AGBU. And I think I can speak on the part of the audience that we really do like this third panel because it's inspiring, it's looking forward, and you've got wonderful ideas. On the other hand, we sat through panel 1 and panel 2. In panel 1, we learned a lot about perhaps the mismatch of education to the work skills we need in this country now and in the near future, and the fact that so many people are leaving this country because they can't find economic security here. In the second panel, we learned a lot about the economic structure of the country and how the government structure may be inhibiting the growth, and we all got very concerned about that. Can you make us feel good now, helping us rationalize what we learned in panel 1 and 2 with the inspiration you've given us?
That's a tough job.
I put something on Facebook a couple weeks ago with the half full, half empty glass principle. Yes, there are challenges in this country. Yes, there are problems with an independent justice system. Yes, there are problems with oligarch monopolies and things. Yes, but if you choose to focus only on those, and you moan and groan about those, nothing's going to happen. So we all are choosing to do something that is possible, that gives results, that employs people, and then in the 20 years that we talked about, we're going to see an Armenian population that is well educated because of this school and the other schools you visited. We're going to see small businesses popping up and exporting because the market exists. And we're going to see a much more brighter future for this country. And yes, the women in our project are not going to accept domestic violence because they have the economic opportunity to pull up stakes and leave if they're being badly treated. Secondly, they're going to vote with their minds and their hearts and not because of a potato sack that they're given by somebody. That's my grand plan. That's my big vision. Is that if we do enough of small projects, little tiny projects all over the country, we're going to create an attitude and a generation of people who want a normally functioning country. And we're going to see it. We are going to see it, and it might take 20 years, it might take 30.
Thank you, by the way. It's great what you... It's being non-Armenian, I think you're feeling very, very close to what we're doing, what's happening in our country, in our nation. I think because we're in a trouble, because we're in a crisis, because we have a danger neighbors, because we have a danger inside of the country, which is why we need to do these all projects. Because if we will not do, we'll have no future. It's why for me, it's third session is just confirming we have a lot of challenges, we have a lot of problems. And we are not talking about the sole problems today, not because we want to hide them and just say we don't exist, but just saying despite in a wine or branding, we're producing the cognac and we're very happy that we are best producing of best cognac in the world. And we all know that 90% of the cognac which is exported today from Armenia is artificially done, is not with grapes because it's been by technical spirit that was bring and imported to and after it was exported to the other countries. And this is what we know, and we're not fighting against this. But we'll continue trying to put the best practice, and Pinot Ricard, the really good quality standard of the brandy, and now we got some other private investor doing this all. Which means for me, it's very clear. We have no options. Despite all what's going on in our education, there's a lot of problems. We need to close 2/3 of our universities to be closed in Armenia, okay? I'm saying this very rudely, but this is no choice, okay? Our schools, teachers need to be educated themselves because they've been not traveling the last 20 years. We have a lot of challenges. But it doesn't mean that we need to be pessimistic or negative or, no, we just understand it's a reality. We need to change. That's why it's all true. We have a lot of, for example, Datev is a good example. In one hand, I'm very proud about Datev, and this was really good example, success story. On the other hand, I'm continuing 5 years, cannot build a hotel because the judge system of Armenia not allowing me to buy out the land from 5 farmers, and they're suing by surpluses, doing this, the same situation with me. There's more of 6 years already. Okay, and this is I can tell you about this. I can tell you, despite all this, the project is executed. The same. You can see the house here in a neighborhood. Again, I can bring you a lot of examples about something which was done not normal. But this is exactly why I say we are, the elite is responsible. And why is AGBU what is here? I'm so glad to see so many people came from all parts of the world. We are responsible for ourselves. Being elite, you're responsible to make the changes despite all what's going day by day in a country that you love. And this is the reality what you need to accept. But you accept doesn't mean accepting and not trying to change. And you need to try to change every day. Building the new standards, building the new attitude. And Tumo is unique. Again, I bring a lot of non-Armenian people to Tumo, and they all been shocked. And they never saw in their life in this type of place in the world. This is why we need to be proud about something we're doing. And it's Dilijan school. I can tell you, one of our good friends with my wife, when our board member, the Dutch person, said, Ruben, you don't understand. In this region, in CIS and Middle East, no other country who can build this type of school anymore, because there will be acceptance of between the nationalities. This is why Armenia needs to benefit, needs to be proud that we are building a type of school in this region. It's very important. And yeah, but at the same time, we have a lot of challenges. And this is the reality that we just facing. And it's no problem. We just need to be realistic, but at the same time, never give up.
Thank you. Armen Terkyuragyan, the president of IUA.
Thank you. This wonderful panel. I want to expand on what Vazgen Kalajian called knowledge destination. Just a little background, then I have a question at the end. I think we will all agree that education has been a very strong, of extreme importance for Armenians throughout history, from Mesrop Mashtots inventing the alphabet, starting a school, to you would call a university maybe now, to Glatzor University in Middle Ages. Think of it, Yerevan state was established in the very difficult days of the First Republic. My own background is from New Julfa in Isfahan. For 400 years, that community maintained schools. Everywhere we've gone after the genocide, Lebanon, Syria, United States, the first thing people have done, Armenians have done, is maybe the first was a church, but then immediately after was a school. I want to compare this. I'm quite familiar with for example, the Iranian community in the United States. In numbers and prosperity, if they don't exceed Armenians, they are no less. There is not a single school that they established there. They have their community centers, but no schools. But Armenians have hundreds of schools in the United States and in other countries. So this all I'm saying the importance of education among Armenians. In the very difficult days of the earthquake, after the earthquake, and then during the war with Karabakh, what did we do? We established an American University of Armenia. Now, in this economic difficult times, this wonderful school has been established. So what I'm going to say is that one of the ways that Armenia can be represented to the rest of the world is a country for education, a destination for knowledge, a destination for education. There are some countries like Malaysia is becoming, Singapore, there are lots of people going to Singapore for education. To Malaysia and United States has been, of course, the biggest destination. UK, several other countries are like this. I think Armenia has the potential to be a country that is known as a place that you go for education from boarding schools like this one, universities like AUA, many other universities, medical university, the others that do have. What is the question? The question for me is, are we ready, or when can we be ready, and how do we brand Armenia as a country where young people could go to receive a high-quality education? It's this branding. How do we go about doing that? And what else? What do we need to be able to do? I must add, I forgot, AGBU schools. Now there are two of them, one in Yerevan, and there'll be more. And of course, TUMO that Rupen mentioned is also an educational institution, a unique one. So how do we use these resources we have to brand Armenia as a destination for knowledge and education? Thank you.
Well, right now, the focus of the brand is tourism and business investment. When we look at there's such a thing as called World Country Brand Index. Just like products, stocks are indexed, country brands are also indexed. Currently, when we started the project a year ago, Armenia was somewhere out of 195 countries, Armenia was somewhere around 137, which is that have done professional branding, which the president and the former prime minister decided that this was time for Armenia to do with the advice of, at the time it was Competitor Foundation, now I think they changed their name. At that time, the #1 brand in the world, country brand, was Switzerland. Now, this year, Switzerland dropped, Japan is #1. And #2 was Canada at the time when we started, and so on. When we looked at all of these countries, analyzed all of these countries, and the key indicators, what makes them successful, there are 26, but I will just narrow it down to 6 key indicators. Tourism, exports, governance, investment and immigration, #4. #5, culture and heritage, and #6, the people. Now, Armenia happens to have half of these really well. It's just we haven't told the story very well yet. Tourism, we have wonderful sites. Everyone who comes here, all of our foreign friends, Germans and English and French who came to our wedding, they were so surprised. Even local Armenians who had never been where we were, like Hovik, said, oh, I've never been here before, right? Remember where our wedding was. So many people haven't discovered this country, and there's so many places. Now there's great hotels, Tufenkian, great restaurants, great places. The service is getting better. So in terms of tourism, and Datev and all these wonderful places, in terms of tourism, we have it, and we could package it and market it. Now, in terms of people, we have amazing people, hospitable. People are so nice in Armenia. It's safe. In New York City, I always have to watch my back when I walk in the streets. I have to teach my daughters how to be tough and not look people in the eye in New York City. They live in New York City, my daughters. So we have wonderful people, #2. #3, culture and heritage. We have amazing culture and heritage All we have to do is really see the value of it and try use this in movies and pop culture, try to infuse this culture and heritage as much as we can and capitalize on that. Now, the rest of it, in terms of investment, we could start really attracting the investment. And as tourism and investment start to come in, then the government, then the policies, infrastructure, cleanliness, all of these things. How many UNESCO sites do we have? Switzerland, you mentioned how we got into education during World War II, building Yerevan University. Switzerland developed its tourism industry before, in the middle of World War I. World War I, Switzerland thought, next 100 years, what we want to do is turn all these mountains, skiing and hiking and climbing, and attract Europeans to come here. And the first groups they brought, 1916, 1917, World War I hadn't even ended. Tourism industry, they were so good. They've developed now, they have 240 people all over the world just focusing on tourism. So we have so much. Exports. Exports are really, really important. One of the things, 25 years ago, I was involved with Denmark, Scandinavian countries. Denmark, for a small country, has 30 well-known global brands. Everyone knows Bang & Olufsen. Everyone knows Legos. Armenia has to think in terms of not only IT and engineering, but developing global brands, marketing it, naming it, packaging it, and exporting it to the world in the proper way. That Indian actor that Ruben showed in the movie, we hired him 10 years ago for $5 million for an Indian client who was selling skin lightening cream. We were paying him $5 million. You know why? He's more popular than Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise and all these guys put together. He is so popular, that guy. So anyway, does this answer your question? How we could... No?
May I try to get something which I believe is critical for all of us? We need to be honest and transparent, and we need to build our own standards. One of the problems we are facing today, and it's I think very critical for all of us to be successful in Armenia, we need to say what is white, what is black. What we're trying to always hide is all part. Again, the wine industry is a very good example. If we will not build the standards, what the good wine means, what the bad wine means, we'll lose our command. We will never get good wine, Armenian wine will never come in the market. Like Germans. Germans' white wine was best wine in the 19th century. And they lost this white wine position because they couldn't put the standards, and the French did it, and they beat them, despite the German white wine was better compared to French. And it's all happened in 20 years' time. If you read all the books in the 19th century, all things about Riesling, but because we couldn't put the standards, they lost the competitive advantage because people couldn't buy product. They didn't know what will be good wine or bad wine. Here the same. With education, the same point. Until we'll continue, we'll sell his diploma, not the knowledge, and people will continue to get this type of the education, not for knowledge, but for other reasons, until we'll not say this is a good school, the best school. And we don't need to push government. It needs to be like the same hotels, we're talking about tourism. We don't have we have one Dol Mama, and 2 other restaurants in Yerevan, and other restaurants need to know if we're not providing the fresh meat, we'll be out of the market because we'll say clients will not come to your restaurant. Okay? If we're not providing good vegetables, and this is why building standards will be one of critical for us, a lead to say this is unacceptable. This will not in the standard what we want to do, being Armenian. This is why to build the standards will be one of the critical elements for everywhere. And a standard doesn't need to come from government. It needs to be by, again, coordination, and elite needs to come together and say, we want to have a best. We don't want to get chemical tomato. I cannot buy a tomato anymore in Armenia because the old tomato which grew up in, you couldn't buy it anymore because it's not very good, and you're getting American tomato which is very good, and it's becoming a problem. The tomato would be in best taste, not anymore you can find in Armenia. That's why, in my opinion, the standards will be critical. If we're not doing it now, as soon as possible, we'll lose our own advantages.
Timothy.
I mean, you mentioned branding of the wine. Wine is one of the industries that's going to be branded in this country, probably. I have a good friend, Voskin, I don't know if he's here, Brudjan. He wants to brand Armenia as a design country based in Tumo, because Italy wasn't a design country until they decided to brand themselves as a design country. He wants to do that for design. I'm thinking of employing hundreds of thousands of women between ages 35 and 50 with a crochet, massive crochet branding something. How do we latch on to what you're doing? How do we participate in what you're doing?
If you want to really do what Denmark did, which create a whole design culture that requires adding perhaps at AUA a whole design center. There's product design, industrial design, along working with engineering. There's branding is important, how you name your product, how you package your product, and then of course quality, and you have to make sure it's competitive, make sure it's the right price, and then you're going to be able to market it and export it to the right countries. And this is something that, we've done, like, I gave the example of India, their products, we transform their product to be ready to export to England, UK. So those are the things that we do all the time for Unilever, for companies like that. And it's very easy to do. But the part that requires from all of us, or at least let's say from educators and the government, to make the commitment that in fact we do want to become like Denmark. We want to become a design destination.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions. Artashes Vartanyan, and then I'm going to give it to you, the mic. Artashes Vartanyan asking to Ruben Vartanyan, what are the next practical steps to leverage the engineering potential in Armenia into the biggest tech hub? You don't know?
I don't know.
Okay, next question. Gor Hovakimian to Mr. Dilijan. How long do we need for the Armenian to see the outcome of the branding project?
We're ready. Basically, the logo and the tagline and the whole thing is ready. And as soon as the president approves it, we'll be able to start launching it.
All right. Rafi.
Okay. I have to say this panel has been the most inspirational during the 3 days. I've been really intensely following it, and some places I was really frustrated. Some places I was questioning the comments and the content that I was receiving from the panelists. Today, we're really going deep, and I really appreciate this. So I have many questions. I'll try and do it as tight as possible. First, when we're talking about image of the country, we are a country that today is associated with war, violence, border issues. We're talking about a centennial. I didn't hear any discussion about this topic. Of course, we don't have to be the victim. We don't have to position ourselves as the victim. But there is some sort of stigma or association to Artsakh, to Azerbaijan, Artsakh/Armenia relations, Turkey, Armenia. Our neighbors are spending amounts and amounts of money of putting themselves out there, and individually right now here, the people, as successful as their businesses are, as really willing as we are, most people here are diasporans from different parts of the world. I don't see a question, not the question, but the role of the leadership of the country, the role of leadership of institutions like the AGBU. This is great. This is a great start. But I want us to hear what's the next step for all of us, and how do we ask our leaders to push it forward, the political will, if you want. So that's one of the questions, and I will ask the second question and go and keep tweeting and so on. The second question is, we all know that we're more in a visual environment. The world is becoming more visual. I haven't heard anything about making movies. I mean, you gave the example of Schindler's List. Where should our investment go in the film or cinematography industry? I'm a filmmaker at heart, and I make films here and there, but I don't see that we have an industry. The Ministry of Culture, the Cinema Center, these are so weak. we can tell one message that Vazgen was talking about to millions of people if we get a really good film happening, or a film industry, not just a film, but an industry. And I'd like to hear thoughts about, let's think outside of the box, as Mr. Vartanian was saying. So film is probably for us, Armenians, outside of the box, but for the rest of the world, it's actually in the box. So let's just hop in. Anyways, these are the two areas that I want us to hear more about.
Have you talked
Thanks.
about this with George Clooney or not?
No, didn't talk about the movie making in Armenia, by the way. It's we spoke with George about it. He was really care about this, all what's happening in Sudan and genocide, and something really quite heavily involved being actor. The movie is a good question. I think it's a good example of something which we need to be realistic. It's like, I remember one day I got a phone call from the guy, said he wants to meet me because he is organizing the team of an Armenian hockey team, and he wants to get really sponsoring him. I said, why we need to have a hockey team in Armenia? Because it's very important for us because we want to participate in, and we have a team, by the way. I know we participate in the C level, it was the third category of the team. And I respect the people who want to do this anyway. But I think one of the things we need to realize, we are a niche player. And our niche is very clearly identified. Each area we can be successful because our resource is limited. We don't have unlimited resources. And thanks God we don't have oil, because if we didn't have oil, it would be a much worse situation, I believe. Because when there's money coming without hard work, you're getting another trap. But we have very limited resources, and we say, where is our competitive advantage? Where we can make the difference? Where is really we can do something very special? And by the way, Kim Kardashian is a very good example. He needs to make movie. Kim Kardashian decided when coming to Armenia, 18 million people like it, put the likes. Okay? It doesn't need to be movie anymore, okay? It's just her name putting what he's having here. Her story about genocide, despite she was not even on genocide, in the first day, 2.5 million people read about her genocide story. So we're living in a world where there's a movie going to TV serial, and a visualization, we need to, because our niche playing, where we can be the best, it's very important to define and clearly find how we can be best. We cannot be mediocre. What I agree, we cannot. The problem what we are trying to do sometimes, we're just doing movie, is not anymore helping. We need to do best. Because we are too small to do mediocre. If we're doing wine, it needs to be best. If we're doing beer, it needs to be very good. Okay? It cannot be just doing beer. About the leadership, it's a question of course we are in a war, and we not realizing this. And by the way, I want to say 85% of Armenians never been in Karabakh. 85% Armenians not visit Armenia, Karabakh, Artsakh, where we've been fighting so many. I will bring another example, which makes me really mad. When this helicopter was shot down, I was in Argentina. And I really was nervous about it. And when I read this old newspaper article about, maybe they went too close to the border, or it was not clear what's happened. I said, what's going on? Why is 100,000 young people not going in the street in every place in the world saying, give us body back. We want to get our pilots' bodies back because you don't have a right to keep it. And 2 days later, when he got body back, not 100,000 people went to the street and said, we are winning, we did it. And this is the part of the feeling we don't have it, right? We are living in a war, and we're not feeling when we're in a war, because it's like somebody else's problem is the army problem. But an 85% Armenian not going to Karabakh, it's boring me. One of the reasons why I started Tatev project, by the way, is not just because Tatev was a unique monastery, because it's a way to the Karabakh. Because I realized to just making the trip to our Karabakh too far, it needs to do Tatev is one of the ideas that I'm trying to develop. By the way, can you show the map? Can you show the map of the project? And you can see what I'm trying to do. It needs to be incorporated, saying we need to do this all linked to each other. Which is why it's not just because I like something I'm doing Dilijan. Everybody asks me, do you have a Tatev relatives? I say, no. Do you have Dilijan relatives? I say, no. Why are you doing project in Dilijan or Tatev? I say, because it's important strategically. But the leadership is to create a vision and try to see really what is the critical for the future, not today, but 20 years ahead or 10 years ahead. And the leader is not only one guy who's running the country. It's everybody, in the business elite, in the public sector elite. It's everybody who needs to think about this way. What we need to do today with 20 years' time will be competitive.
Okay, next question.
My name's Lucy Vartavanian. I work for Homeland Development Initiative Foundation. I'm their festival coordinator. We've been listening a lot about branding and tourists, and yes, Armenia has an amazing potential to bring in a lot of tourists. We've proved that this country has scenery. We've proved that the people in this country have this amazing ability to give hospitality to our visitors, whether it's good wine, whether it's fantastic hotels in Yerevan. And Mr. Vartanian, if you ever want to know a good restaurant, please give me a call. I'll give you a number of... I like Dolmama as well, but there are a few others. I think we've also proved the fact that we have a lot of things to bring in tourists to this country, including the festivals that we do, the very successful sheep shearing festival that took place last year at Halizo, which again will take place on the 6th of June. And also, we've also got other festivals around the country, and these do bring people. And what it does also is it creates this kind of uplifting effect within the community, gives them the opportunity to feel part of their country and to show the rest of the world what they have there. It also creates jobs. Now, my concern here is the fact that, yes, we have beautiful mountains providing skiing, extreme sports. We have excellent places for hiking. We have Lake Sevan for those who want to have that seaside effect of a holiday. But how do we bring these people when there is no national carrier? The prices are too high. We don't, you know, how do we do that? What do we do that? How do we go about creating an environment to bring these people here? Not everyone can afford to come to Armenia. I just want to finish. I was born in Cyprus. After the Turkish invasion, the Cypriots decided to create a tourist environment. The first thing they did was create a national carrier. And as a child growing up, I always wanted to feel like, oh my God, my parents are going to send me to England, or my grandparents are going to send me to England to my parents. I've always wanted, and look forward to actually getting on Cyprus Airways and flying off. We need a national carrier, or we need an airline that will provide affordable prices to bring people into Armenia. Thank you.
Was it a question or a speech? I mean, you want to react? Okay.
A good point, but I totally disagree with you about national care. Because when you're talking about national care, it's emotions. We're talking about how to make the price cheaper. We had the national care, and Armavi didn't make this us the easier accessibility to Armenia. We did a research looking at what is the key driver for the really bringing the people to a country like Armenia. And you're absolutely right. We need to do the best we can to attract airlines to come to Armenia. And monopoly never work well to anyone, any other industry. And by the way, aviation industry, one of the most expensive industry, in the last 70 years, never been profitable, always been loss maker. To keep your nation, by the way, Swiss, which is the most efficient government, in the end, bankrupt Swiss Airlines, which was the best, and we become part of the Lufthansa. And if you're in Air France, and I can go most of European airlines keep the brand, but they not anymore belongs to the countries, they belong to the conglomerates. What we're trying to do, which is the best way to do, is open sky policy, saying everybody can compete. And if somebody wants to develop national care, like Southwest Airlines doing something very efficiently, very professionally, please, no problem. But to really attract Armenia to become in the map of the, we need to have a good airport, which we have, but we need to have a government policy, which we don't have fully. We have a declaration that they have open sky, but many things is not done, and the government didn't finalize all the decisions what needs to make. And we need to go and try to bring the airlines. And I can tell you, we have 2 airlines who came to say, we're willing to fly to Armenia by €100 per ticket from 18 cities from Europe if government can provide us with some of the elements which needs to be done. And if so and I'm sure it's possible to get this type of the airlines, attract them and support them to come to Armenia. And will be flights needs to become €100 per ticket. But I don't think a national carrier will solve this problem for us if it will be based not market economy condition, but it will be based by monopoly condition, which was unfortunately the case in our country many years.
Thank you, Հակոբ Ասատրյան.
Հակոբ Ասատրյան, օրեր Եվրոպական ամսագրի գլխավոր խմբագիր Չեխիա։ Դուք խոսեցիք ձեր հաջողությունների մասին Հայաստանում, բայց կցանկանայի իմանալ ինչ դժվարություններ եք հաղթահարել, ինչ խոչընդոտներ եք հաղթահարել, որ հասել եք ձեր արդյունքին, հատկապես դա կարևոր է նրանց համար, ովքեր ուզում են ներդրում կատարել Հայաստանում եւ վախենում են դրանից։ Ասենք, եթե տիպիկ հայկական ինչ դժվարություններ կան, որոնք պետք է հաղթահարել լավ արդյունքի հասնելու համար։ Շնորհակալություն։
10 problems you should know before start business in Armenia, as Huffington Post.
Well, there's many problems. I think we face all of the similar problems. Team building, bureaucracy, and marketing your product. What is unique in Armenia is that if we want to create packaging, etc., to compete on the international market, most of the things have to come from outside, except our labor force, which we should also bring people in from outside to train them. And I think here, because all of us talk about how we care about people in the abstract and how we want Armenians, to have a better standing, I think what we can do, and each of us and each of you here who has a skill, if you come and train someone, then you already have a solution. And a lot of people talk about corruption and whatnot, but my father always says, if you don't leave room for error and you strive for excellence in your process and the product, you don't have to pay anyone off.
Okay, thank
you. In my organization, I'm going to be criticized for this probably, but we have imported from China a container of yarn because we could not find a consistent supply of quality yarn in the right colors in Armenia. Never a problem with customs. Never had any dizvarnera. Nothing. Export as well. We have exported to the United States. We have exported to Russia. We're not having any bureaucratic problems. The problems we are having is access to fabrics, for example. AGBU wanted to order tents from us for their summer camp. We couldn't find the materials for it in this country. That's the biggest problem we've had, is having that raw material, as you mentioned, for your industry.
The biggest problem is quality standard every day. We have a highest hospitality, but it's like getting friends in your home. But it's everyday service, despite of are you have a good mood or bad mood. It's a quality which you can provide really consistently. It's a big problem. And execution, a lot of discussion, a lot of talk, but very slow execution skill. And the third, it's because we've been last 20 years in Armenia, not traveling abroad, and it's not only a question about elite, but people don't understand 8% people never left Armenia during the last 20 years because all we went to Kabuleti, which means we didn't see the best standard, we didn't see the benchmark. And this is why, to explain what the best, to build this school, we bring Serbian construction. I'm feeling shame to tell you, all of you, we bring Georgians and Serbians to build the school in Armenia because we couldn't find the high quality people to make this work. And the reason was because, again, it's people not been work with this type of materials. We didn't work with this type of and it's a problem because we didn't have so many type of construction in Armenia. We can learn. If we learn, as soon as we learn, we can do it. But we need to. You know what Lee Kuan Yew did in Singapore? After the first 5 years, he was in head of the country. He sent out 50% of local population from 18 years old to 50 years old to outside of the Singapore, to Japan, Western Europe, and America. But they can see what the different life standard, what is the real standards of the best countries. We need to bring this type of the attitude, what is the best in the international standard. People not know here because we're living so many years without traveling. So I'll say, and by the way, I agree with no corruption. We're doing this whole project, we've never been facing any corruption, but no decision, no execution, nothing happening, and it's very slow. Doing anything is was one of the biggest challenges, I think, for investors to be ready for this.
Thank you. Next question here.
Շնորհակալություն։ Արեգ Քոչինյան, Լեոն գրում էր, հայկական հարցը նույնքան հին է, որքան հայ ժողովուրդը, եւ ես ինձանից կավերացնեմ, որ իհարկե այնքան հին է, բայց տարբեր ժամանակահատվածներում, տարբեր դարերում այդ հարցը իր մեջ գրում էր նոր ենթատեքստ հարմարվելով ժամանակի մարտահրավերներին։ Որն է ձեր ընկալմամբ այսօրվա հայկական հարցի էությունը, եւ որն է մեր լուծումները, որոնք մենք կարող ենք կամ ունակ ենք առաջարկել, հաշվի առնելով արդին մարտահրավերները։ Հարցս կուղեմ բոլոր բանախոսներին, ովքեր կցանկանան պատասխանել։ Շնորհակալություն։
Problem?
Yes, question. Bigger question. How can we solve it?
It's above my pay grade.
I'm not sure I can also give I would say mediocreness. I think what is killing us, mediocreness. I would say it's one of the, when in genocide happened, Armenians, elite and non-ordinary people put a lot of effort to preserve Armenian culture, Armenian nation. When we've been very good, it's clear. But today, and when it was by the way, earthquake or the Karabakh war, a lot of diaspora Armenians, despite we've never been in Armenia, we didn't like what's going on, we didn't know what's going on, we want to help, we want support. That's why it's something critical happening, we are becoming very concentrated. But what's happening now last 10 years, we are okay. We're getting oligarchs who are doing okay in Armenia, we have people, in the wedding, you cannot find restaurants in Armenia, all the restaurants are fully booked because the weddings are baptizing kids, and this is all going 300 people, 400 people, and we're getting remittance money coming, and I would say mediocreness is killing us, and it's just one of the most dangerous disease which I think we have today in Armenia, because just living okay, being between Nicaragua or Panama, which I very highly respect this country, it's no problem, but just being one of them is, I think, is becoming very dangerous. That's why Armenian questions become who we are, what is our ambitions, are we really trying to continue to be one of the key driver of the region or the industries or some of the culture, or we're just saying, okay, we're living, we have a nice Horowatz and nice, and we don't want to have ambitions anymore, or who has ambition is to leave the country, because only this way he can achieve his ambition. And this is, I think, one of the key points. Can the person who has a good skill and good ambitions be successful in Armenia and worldwide standards? And this is, I think, one of the key challenges what we are facing, how to make Armenia the place the person can really become top successful mathematician or top successful winemaker, and will be sure he can be recognized as a top brand.
I can add something. I think that from the short amount of experience that I've had, that I could say that productivity is lower, but I come from New York, so, I have a different benchmark in terms of that. And I think that part of the reason why productivity is low, mothers call their sons 5 times a day and that's too many coffee breaks, just compared to New York standards. So that's...
Thank you, distinguished panel. My name is Aram Markosyan. I represent the first Armenian 100% natural cosmetics company called Nairian. My question is though about something else. We talked about branding Armenia and using for branding Armenia education, wine, tourism, which requires lots of investment and time and effort. How about something we already have? We have a lot and world class. It's art and music. As an example of great branding, R.F. Petrosyan's stained glass is now at the ceiling of Euro Parliament's main hall, right? Can we leverage this? Can we leverage hundreds and thousands of artists and musicians that are pretty well known in the world, but they're they're on their own? Thank you.
Well, one of the easiest ways to transform a city or a destination and bring tourists in big numbers is, for example, what Bilbao did. Bilbao was a conflict zone like Karabakh, and they spent $40 million put a Frank Gehry Museum, Guggenheim Art, and now they were projecting that within 7 days they would make the money back, and then within 4 years they've already made the money back. So it's a no-brainer. A lot of mayors are doing that. I just went to the opening of Louis Vuitton Foundation in Paris, and Paris put itself on the map one more time now. They have the second Eiffel Tower. It's called Louis Vuitton, Foundation Louis Vuitton. So I've traveled all the way to Japan to visit Tadayando Museum in a very far island called Chichu. So tourists from all over the world will come to see signature star buildings. So that's an easy way to do that. So you fill that with art, great art, you put Armenian art, then you got millions of tourists coming, high-end tourists coming to your cities, to your country.
I think, if I may add something, I think it's also very important that we have our literature translated and available in many languages, because we have so many wonderful texts and very few people know about it, unfortunately. And again, role of the individual to promote arts, culture, and bring more attention to it, and more will be produced.
Բարև ձեզ, my name is Nina Siropova. I work for the Diocese of Armenian Apostolic Church in Georgia. And during these days, we were talking a lot about human capital, about creating an appropriate environment for Armenians to come back to their homeland and so on. But as I'm from Georgia, maybe some of you have heard that the Georgian diaspora of Georgian Armenians used to be very, very strong and very famous. But nowadays, it's not so. Like, Armenian schools are being just closed, and Armenians living in Georgia, they are losing their national identity, their ethnicity. So my question is, what kind of measures should be taken in order to prevent Armenians living abroad from losing their national identity? And how both in Armenia, inside Armenia, and outside Armenia, we can strengthen our nation? Thank you very much.
So it wasn't a question. Here, we have a question here. That was a question. Okay. I missed somewhere.
I'm not sure, again, I can be best answering this question. Again, it's part of the discussion how to be proud that you are Armenian. Or, again, one of the reasons why in Beirut, for example, or other Muslim countries like Syria or in Iran, Armenians kept their identity stronger, because you're living much more dangerous environment, not dangerous, much more different environment compared to who you are. When you're living in Russia, or you're living in the United States, or in Georgia, you're less under pressure being different. That's why your assimilation happening much quicker. That's why the school, giving the best school, the only way I can keep your kids Armenian, because they need to go to the best school. It doesn't matter if it's Armenian school or non-Armenian school. That's why I would say the only way how we keep our nationalities and identities is being proud that you're Armenian, which means there needs to be built success stories about Armenian world, not Armenian country, but Armenian world. Second, we need to build the best schools, best education places where the parents want to go. We need to have a dream where the other nationalities will send their kids to Armenian school. You know what's happening now in England? There is Catholic schools, because they're so good, but the people are not Catholic trying to go to church just because their kids were allowed to go to Catholic church. What we need to do, we need to build the schools in Australia and Argentina where the kids from Argentina will say, how we can come be Armenian in school? This is the best way to keep our identity. Otherwise, we'll lose. That's why I say the schools, culture center needs to be the best level which people will feel proud to send their kids.
Garen Diraryan asked questions for you, Mr. Vartanyan. He's asking that you criticize Armenian not going to Karabakh, but how they can go to Karabakh if they can find money to buy food. I mean, why aren't you talking about the poverty?
Yes, it's a poverty in Armenia. It's a lot of people that have no money to travel, and unfortunately they don't have a job, and so we can talk about this. At the same time, like I said, again, we can see, despite this all, some people who want to go, they go by I saw that some people take the bicycles and went to the Karabakh because they want to go see it. It's a question, if you want it, you can find a way how to do it. I saw the people coming to from the very poor region, but they collect the money, they hire the car together for 4 of them, and just decide because they want to come to see it. It's a question, are you wanted to do it or not? Because poverty is definitely stopping many people doing many things, but it's not the explanation why you're not doing something which is critical for example, feeling that you're a winner of the war.
Okay. Հարց այստեղից միկրոֆոնը համեցեք.
Hello, my name is Patrick. I'm from France. We are in an incredible place here where students are from everywhere around the world. From what I heard when I asked some of them, maybe Dilijan wasn't their first choice. It's true that today most of the students, they are attracted by Asia. They want to learn Chinese. They think this is the next step in terms of business. You were mentioning that we could make things here at least as cheap, but definitely in a better quality. So maybe we need to educate those people. You have 48 nationality here this year. Next year you intend to have more than 60. Wouldn't it be a way if we could have them learn Armenian in a kind of a mandatory way in order to make sure that tomorrow's leader in terms of business or anything would be able to come back and want to do business here because they know the language?
If you believe you can do it, please, you can build your school with mandatory Armenian for foreigners and attract them. I don't believe it's going to be really realistic to have a mandatory Armenian for the foreigners to be, but I think we need to want to do it, and I will believe it's the best way if the person by volunteer wants to learn Armenian, which is happening now in our school. And by the way, we need to love to Armenian, because mandatory sometimes means it's not good memory about what happened with them. Anyway, it's a good point about having more people to speak Armenian. I believe we need to do a lot of efforts, translating a lot of books from foreign language to Armenian. We need to develop Armenian language, and we, by the way, in our school, putting a lot of efforts to build not only knowledge of the Eastern Armenian, but Western and Karabakh. But if you believe you can do the school, I'm happy to follow your example. You just try it.
Karen Komendarian, ABC Connection. First of all, I would like to appreciate this event, the organizers of the event, and to greet all the participants. There's a question I would like to ask, but not specifically to a specific person. The question is about common memory. A long time residing overseas, understood that the vision about Armenia is limited to genocide and vision of Ararat. Maybe it's good, but not so good, because we have too much to show to the world. It is also a part of common memory. We have also other instances of common memory. The passion for education, Karabakh movement, also part of common memory. The question is, do we have something else besides all I have listed already as a part of common memory to inspire, to engage, and to strengthen the nation? Thank you.
I think maybe it's a good time to share what the strategy of Armenia is, and this might give you an idea what this common theme that we want to create for Armenia. We call this the positioning statement for the strategy for Armenia, the brand Armenia. Armenia is a symbol of tradition, innovation, and perseverance. It's a place where a vibrant cultural and spiritual heritage bridge the past with the future. It's a country that excels because the ability to adapt, create, and invent are part of the national character. And no matter where on earth and what point in time, its people thrive knowing they will always be part of an irrepressible, passionate nation. The impression of Armenia is eternal. So this is the kind of story that we want to create for Armenia. Powerful, optimistic, forward-looking, and maybe in a few minutes I will share some of the tagline ideas we have, which we've narrowed down to 4 taglines. And I would like this audience, because you are great brand ambassadors for the Armenia brand, to give me your opinion. Maybe we take a little vote, which tagline they prefer the best.
Let's do it now.
Right now?
Yes.
Okay. The first tagline, Armenia, where history is made. Second tagline, Armenia, home eternal. Third, Armenia, the story is just beginning. Fourth, Armenia rewards the bold. So the first one, everyone who wants to vote for number 1, which is Armenia, where history is made, please raise your hands and someone count the hands for me. Armenia, where history is made. Repeat them all. Armenia, where history is made. Number 2, Armenia, home eternal. Number 3, Armenia, the story is just beginning. Number 4, Armenia rewards the bold. Rewards, yeah. So, rewards.
The bold?
The bold.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Like,
okay.
like an entrepreneur, you know.
Okay. I thought the bold. Okay, number 3, obvious, because the number 3. Let's vote. Okay.
Can vote, yeah.
Let's start again. Number 1.
Number 1, raise your hand, Armenia, where history is made. Too late.
19.
Too late already. 19. Number 2, Armenia, home eternal.
Seven.
Number 3, Armenia, the story is just beginning.
$65. It doesn't matter.
How many?
A lot. 65.
The last one, Armenia rewards the bold.
$8. 9.
So the winner with the AGBU group is Armenia, the story is just beginning. Is that right? Okay. And Berj and Vasken, you agree with the Central Committee? You vote? Okay. Thank you. And Ruben, how about you? Which one? Number 3. Thank you very much. No, the history, we're not talking about history is just beginning, we're talking about story. The new chapter in a story.
It was a grand rehearsal.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, եւ մենք մոտենում ենք ավարտին, վերջին խոսքի հնարավորության պարոն Վարդանյան, եկեք ձեզ տանք ու դրանից հետո ավարտենք արդեն մոտենում ենք։ Որովհետեւ հարցը նաեւ շատ ընդհանուր է։
Ինձ թվում է շատ խոսացի արդեն դրա համար չեմ ուզում ինչ-որ նոր բան ասեմ։ Միակ բանը ինչ ուզում ասեմ, որ ես հպարտ եմ, որ ես ուրախ եմ, որ մենք ստեղ հավաքվել ենք եւ խոսում ենք։ Եվ ես շատ ուրախ եմ, որ AGBU-ն շատ կարևոր ինձ թվում է հանդիպումներ անցկացնում եւ շատ կարևոր խոսակցություն է տանում, որ մենք հասկանանք մեր մեջ ինչն է գաղափարը, որ մեզ տանում է առաջ, ինչն է այն բանը, որ մեզ միացնում է։ Ոնց մենք կարանք իրար հետ աշխատենք, իրար լսենք, ու ոնց մենք կարանք անենք ամեն ինչ, որ մարդիկ իրար հարգելով, դներով տարբեր, ու ընդունել որ մենք տարբեր ենք, բայց մյուս կողմից ինչ բան մեզ ընդհանուր միացնում է, եւ այդ միացնող բանը լինի ամենաբարձր մակարդակի պահանջներով արած բանը։ Եվ ես միշտ ուրախ կնեմ շարունակեմ մեր համագործակցությունը եւ AGBU-ի հետ եւ բոլոր մարդկանց հետ որ ստեղ նստած են, շատ ուրախ եմ որ մենք այդ անում ենք արդեն եւ վստահ եմ որ միակ այդ ճանապարհն է հաջողության, որ մենք իրար համագործենք։ Ես հույսով եմ Հայաստան գալը կդառնան նորմալ բանը ոչ թե մենակ հարյուրամյակի հետ կապված, բայց ընդհանուր Հայաստան գալը կդառնա in ճանապարհ որ մարդիկ կուզենան գան ամեն անգամ որտեղ գիտեն որ ստե իրանց տունն է, իրանց հայրենիքն է։
Շնորհակալ եմ բոլորին։ Մենք եզրափակում ենք երրորդյա քննարկումները, այժմ շատ կարճ coffee break, որից հետո արդեն ձայնը կտանք Պեսետրակյանին, որը կամփոփի մեր երրորդյա քննարկումները։ Հիմա coffee break. I was told coffee break. Or not? Կներեք։ No break. Okay, let's hear Pesetrakyan and then go for coffee break. Please have a seat back. Please have a seat. Okay, Pardon Pesetrakyan.
Well, who would believe that it's been already 3 days? Time flies, and I think that it was a very rewarding experience. You know, many of you will wonder why AGBU took this initiative. Obviously, this kind of ideas do not come overnight. We have been, for the last 10, 15 years, especially after the independence of Armenia, rethinking about what are really the goals and aims of an organization like AGBU. You know, for about 100 years, most of the Armenian organizations in the diaspora, including AGBU, we always acted by being motivated by the consequences of the genocide. Our organization had a great founder, Boğaz Nubar Pasha, whose father was Prime Minister of Egypt, who was Minister of Justice of Egypt. He was the Minister of Finance who negotiated the financing of the Suez Canal with the Banque d'Indochine. And Boğaz Nubar Pasha had gone to the Grandes Écoles in France. So he had a vision of the world. Imagine, he graduated from France in the 1880s, 1890s. He had a vision, and his vision was statehood. When he started AGBU, as a matter of fact, AGBU's real name was supposed to be Armenian General Union. The benevolent title was added because it was incorporated in Egypt, and according to Egyptian laws, no particular organization has the right to have a generic term like Armenian General Union. That's how it became Armenian General Benevolent Union. But Boğaz Nubar didn't think too much about benevolence. For him, benevolence was building statehood. As a matter of fact, in 1907, after 1 year, his first donation was to buy agricultural equipment and give it free for the people on the land to stop the exodus toward the cities. So he had another vision. And as a matter of fact, in 1924, he established in Paris, whoever is familiar with the Cité Universitaire, the Armenian House. Everybody criticized how after the genocide, instead of helping the poor, you go and build a pavilion at the Cité Universitaire. Because he had a vision, he said, one day Armenians are going to stand back on their feet, they are going to come to France, they are going to study, and they will need a place to stay. And so on and so on. In 1931, he created the Nubarashen village here, which has now about 15,000 population under the worst communist times. And in 1929, he established the ophthalmologic center, which is still on Apovian. Just imagine this man and the organizations that he could have created. The same way, Carlos Gulbenkian, when he was president of this organization, Mr. 5%, they had visions. But unfortunately, the organization was forced, because of the events, to turn into really a benevolent organization in the 20s and 30s, take care, open orphanages, because Armenian people needed that. Then teach them some art craft or to become artisans, so that they can secure a living. And on and on. And then we had schools. So the organization always thought, has been practically held hostage by the consequences of the genocide. And it continued, and unfortunately, suddenly, we had the first revolution in Egypt with the nationalization with Abdel Nasser. And in 1952-53, the Armenian community of Egypt of 80,000 was presently there about 5,000. Then we had the Syrian revolution because with the union with Egypt. Again, we lost a big portion of our population. Then we had the Lebanon war, where the population went down from 200 to 150,000 to about 50, 60,000 today. And Iran, and now again Syria, and again Iraq. So whether we like it or not, these humanitarian issues held us hostage for a whole century. But since the independence of Armenia, we started thinking, what is the future of our nation? Because I don't believe that we have Armenia and diaspora. We are one nation. Every member of the state is a member of the nation, but every member of the nation is not a member of the state. We have just this difference. And we don't have the right too much by being member of a nation, living in Los Angeles or Burj Hamid or somewhere, to come and tell the state what to do. We will contribute for a betterment of this country. Why? It is also with self-interest, because the diaspora, we reach the conclusion. We used to have in the 20s and 30s and 40s and 30s and 60s one diaspora. What was this one diaspora? If you had visited all the diaspora communities, there was one common denominator. They all came from one source, the Middle East, either to Marseille, Greece and South America, or Aleppo, Beirut, and the New World. But one thing, all the leaders of our chapters had common denominator, the nostalgia of the old country. The Armenian language, keeping the traditions, and the fear of being integrated. Many of our schools in the New World have been established mostly for the benefit of the parents who wanted to have an Armenian social milieu so that through their children going to Armenian school, they have a raison d'être. Today, we have a third generation. In our diaspora especially, while we have the problem of immigration from Armenia, we have also the question of the immigration of the diasporans to the outside world and the risk of forgetting who they are. So the crisis is global. We reach the conclusion that we have to, first of all, use the genocide's centennial to start a new chapter in the life of our organization and thus in the life, hopefully, of the diaspora. We have to be, we talked a lot during these 3 days about the question of we shouldn't behave like victims, there is a new generation. I'm not going, at the beginning, unfortunately, I wasted 3-4 hours of my time preparing the summary of the 2-3 days, and as a lawyer, it costs a lot of money, 4 hours. But I decided to give up because we write off also for some clients who do not pay. So, I thought that many things have been said. You know what? Everybody was right. In this kind of topics, there is no right, there is no wrong. There is a goodwill, there is a pragmatism, and there is a vision. We wanted to get together as an experience also by inviting our friends and the colleagues in Armenia, because we cannot build the nation with the diaspora alone or with Armenia alone. The problems are common. And we believe that while we used to say diaspora, Spirk Hayrenikov, Hayrenikov Spirkov, that's true. But in this essential stage, we cannot do two things at the same time. We cannot eat and drink at the same time. First, we have reached the conclusion that Spirk Hayrenikin, all efforts have to be concentrated to Armenia. It doesn't mean that we should forget our diasporan communities, because our diasporan communities have tendency always to consider themselves victims that AGBU is concentrating so much on Armenian activities. But why Armenia? Because we believe that the third generation in the diaspora which is practically drifting away, will come back to us if we bring to this generation the pride of being Armenian. And the pride can come from the country. If Armenia will not become a source of pride, whether we have Armenia or not is not going to make any difference with the new generation. If we really succeed in having a strong country economically, politically, socially, and we can do it. You said that we are not more intelligent than others. You're right, but I believe sometimes there are some people who have some IQs or other reasons, and maybe historical circumstances which force them not only to be more acceptable, malleable, but also to be different. And I think that sometimes I think about my own career. I was born in Lebanon. I studied law in Lebanon. I studied in French. I went to the United States. And so I lived in 3 different cultures. And I always think, and one day I had a colleague in Brussels. His name is Edouard Jacquian from Brussels, who was a prominent lawyer. And his firm and my firm, we had entered into a merger. And we had a reception in honor of the locals. Everybody got drunk except he and I. And then we whispered to each other, said, you know, because we have always this somehow complex that we want to make sure that we don't do a mistake, while the others do not have so much this sense. So there is something that most probably, as we say in the diaspora, in the Middle East, up to recently, we haven't been integrated. If I take Lebanon, in general, we are just starting now, maybe after 100 years, to be integrated in the Lebanese community. So we have, our message to our chapters has been, and we are having some tension, obviously, we have to get out, not out of our box, but out of our enclave. We have to be successful. Imagine in the United States, in 1984, we had the governor of the 7th largest economy in the world, California. We had 1.5 congressmen, 1 full and 1 half. We had the Speaker of the House of Massachusetts, a very strong, powerful position. We had the Senate Majority Leader of New Jersey. We had the Majority Leader of the Assembly of California. We had 3 out of the 7 justices of the Supreme Court of California. And our dear Jewish community had Jacob Javits as senator and had the mayor of New York. Look where is the Jewish community today in America. And look where we are. The highest elected official today in America is one of the 24 members of the City Council of Los Angeles. What happened to us? These are the issues that we have to think, because everything is interrelated. If we don't get strong in the diaspora and communities, we are not going to be able to help. So we are actually, AGBU is in a soul-searching mode. We believe that if we continue our old trend, maybe in 20, 25 years will become really irrelevant. And I should say that our cooperation with Rupen, Nubar, and some of our board members, Sam, Joseph Woodland, we started a joint thinking, because by the end of the day, neither Rupen, nor we, nor anybody has any self-interest. We all can do something else. But we believe that the result of this soul-searching, and your input is extremely important, and that's why we organize this gathering. And my hope is that, at least in Armenia, we continue this effort with the link with the diaspora and build the bridges. I would like to conclude by, first of all, thanking you all for being here. It's really very impressive. I never thought that we would have such an attendance. I would like to thank all our delegates, the 2 gentlemen from São Paulo, Brazil, our friends from Argentina, our friends from Uruguay, our friends from Lebanon, from Syria, from France, and I don't want to continue because if I miss somebody, then they tell me I'm discriminating. Australia, everywhere. And let me tell you, in recent years, the last 10 years, we have new communities because of the immigration of the Armenians from Armenia. Now we have a presence in Barcelona. We have 40,000 people living between Barcelona and Madrid, and they are starting already raising funds to build a church. There is always this conviction that we start with the church. I mean, we have many problems. I am very optimistic. I am very optimistic about the future of Armenia. Because if I am not, there is no reason for me to continue doing what I'm doing. I believe in it. I'm happy that my wife believes in it. My children believe in it. So, thank you very much. I would like to thank Rupen and this international school for hosting this event, as well as the American University of Armenia and AGBU schools. I would like to thank all our panelists. I would like especially to thank our Master of Ceremony, Artak. He did a fantastic job. I think he could have his own show in New York at ABC or anywhere else, but I'm happy that you are staying here. And I hope you are staying here. Okay. You know, the only thing that I write usually are the thank yous, because if you forget somebody, then it's a disaster. Let me see now. Ardak, all panelists, all participants, all those who provided the technical assistance, the organizing committee chaired by our colleague and friend, Vasken Yakubian, I would like to express special thanks to Talar Kazanjan, who is not here today, to our local staff, our New York-based staff, and above all, again, to all of you. I would like you also to know that our relationship and cooperation with IDEA and we are highly appreciative of all the initiatives that Rupen did and is doing and will do. I think he's a giant. He by himself one day will be bigger than AGBU, I hope. But together we work very well. I think that we are thankful that he accepted for us to partner with him in this project, as we will do with the other projects. And on this occasion, I would like to announce just a token commitment by AGBU to provide for the coming 5 years $100,000 a year to develop the cultural, arts, music activities of the school. Thank you very much.
Հիմա coffee break.
Only yesterday, the road to the Tatev monastery seemed to be long.
Իսկ Դիլիջանի միջազգային դպրոցին մաղթում եմ բարի երեխա։
За svaku državu i narod otvaranje škole je poseban praznik.
Just a couple of questions and we finish. Okay. Այսօր CivilNet-ի կողմից հայկական բարեգործական ընդհանուր միության զրույցների երրորդ շարքն էր, որը տեղի ունեցավ Դիլիջանի միջազգային դպրոցում, եւ այս ընթացքում 3 զրույցներն էլ հեռարձակվել են CivilNet-ով, դուք կարող եք դրանք դիտել արդեն մեր կայքում, եւ բավական հետաքրքիր խոսակցություններ էին, զրույցներ էին, որոնց կենտրոնում Հայաստանը եւ հայությունն էր. and I was talking about these AGBU talks that were held during these 3 days. And Tim, if I'm not mistaken, you are the only foreigner to come here as a speaker, as a panelist. And it's also quite symbolic that all these 3 talks were held in educational institutions. Institutions that are islands of excellency in Armenia, and AGBU School, AUA, and now the Dilijan International School. As a foreigner, although I can't say you are a foreigner, you are 100% Armenian, in my opinion, with your initiatives and with what you are doing. Where we should start, because if we take this 100th century, 100th anniversary of the genocide, etc., but we should look forward. Where to start for Armenia?
We have started. We have started. What you saw today was a start. Seriously. The education. We have to start at the bottom, with the young people. We have that. We have AGBU, we have TUMO, we have Dilijan, we have AUA. We have great educational institutions. We don't have all of the Armenian children in those systems, obviously, but it's going to come. It's going to come in increasing the critical thinking type of education, creating next generation. My project is at a different level. You know, we are aiming at 35 to 50-year-olds or so who can crochet or knit, who are already established with a family and children and are not as flexible, movable in their lives anymore. So we can't leave those people behind. We have to employ everybody in this country. If we're going to work on the immigration issue, we need to employ people, provide them with economic opportunities. So the education is starting down here, and in 20 years, that's going to come up, and it's going to blossom. This country is going to blossom.
With your project, you're empowering people to be economically more independent, especially women in the rural areas. And if you talk about your project and all these successful projects in Armenia, including TUMO, AUA, etc., all these projects are bottom-up projects. How do you think the opposite movement must triggered up to bottom?
Yeah, I mean, the Tatev Revival Foundation cable car project, that was a very serious, major infrastructure project that comes in and boom, in the middle of a couple, 7 and 9 actually, villages, and is supposed to trickle down. So it's not just about bottom up. There are top down. Coming in, top-notch infrastructure, in that case, institution in the school. So it is not just bottom up, it is also top down. So I don't quite agree with what you said about that it's only bottom up. There are different discussions on how to do development. Do you start with the small people and a little bit of income? That's what we do. Or do you start and just put down a big infrastructure project on the top? He said building a major monumental building in Yerevan, for example, Baskin said that would bring major tourism into the city, a landmark building in Yerevan. I think we already have the Cascade. Let's make the Cascade bigger and better. No other city has something like that, in my book at least. So it's, yeah, I mean, there's so many exciting things going on. Top up, top down, bottom up. We have the infrastructure. It's moving forward.
And there was also saying that Yerkir, like country is not a country. Many people complain about poverty, about the lack of opportunities. How to overcome all this and how to simply break the wall?
Yeah. Would they please stop using their energy on complaining about how bad it is and focus on the good stuff? That's what I'm trying to do. The glass is half full, the glass is half empty. There are so many opportunities if you just identify them in this country, but like me with the crochet. When I discovered that baby rattle I talked about is only about 5% more expensive to manufacture in Armenia, and we're better quality, shorter delivery time, etc., I got really excited. Do you know how many women there are that can crochet in this country? If we estimate, 600,000 women in this country can crochet? That's a resource. That's a resource that nobody sees. It's an old world, obsolete, no prestige technique that most women in this country can do. Well, I'm sorry, in the United States and in Europe and in Australia, New Zealand, and probably starting in Russia, that's something that their grandmothers did, and they have a romantic relationship to it. Nobody does it anymore. They don't know how to do it, the young people, so they pay a premium price for it because it reminds them of something good, something about their history and their family. We need to utilize that potential that is in these 500,000 women. It's quite simple.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay, thank you very much.
Honorary Consul of Norway and Finland to Armenia and the founder of Homeland Development Initiative in Armenia. Stay with CivilNet. Thank you.